Yo, yo, yo. Oh, sorry, guys. It's a little bit loud. What's going on, everybody? What's up, what's up, what's up? Okay, where do I want to go? Where do I want to go here? What's over here? Oh! Wrong one. This one? No. This one? No. This one? No. Shit! Oh, that one. What's up? Hey, Chris. Hey, Dennis. What's up, boys? My two favorite guys. Oh, shit. What's going on, everybody? What's going on? It's Monday. Is it Monday? Yeah, it's Monday. Let me check my phone. Yep. You're gonna level a paladin. Every time we stream, Chris is leveling a new character. Jesus. Do you get past the campaign? Sorry, do you get past Act 1? You're also on the dark side? Oh, shit. Oh, boy. Dennis has got like 7 monitors right now. Lots of experimentation going on with the reimagining mod. Yeah. Oh, my God. I don't know what's going on with me, but I just want to play this. I don't know what's going on. I have not played a video game. This has got to be the longest stretch. It's probably been 6 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. 5 full days since the live reveal. Well, I didn't do anything that day because I worked. So that's Thursday. Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, something. Holy shit. Something's wrong with me. You just keeping your mind busy? I can't. I was telling Dennis in the DM, like, I was supposed to get back to him on the weekend, and it just, okay, my weekend was shot because I had my wife's first cousin was in town. So that kind of screwed up my weekend. So yeah, that kept us busy. We took her, everywhere that we could. And she left this morning, but that just, like, I was already behind the 8 ball from the live reveal, because that one video that I did, literally, it took a chunk of my flesh out of me. It was so rough. You send DM. Oh, you sent me a DM. Wednesday. What's Wednesday? Wednesday. Okay, Dennis. I got your thing. I'll let you know. Yeah, we could do Wednesday. I'll let you know. I'll respond to it. Okay, so the Path of Exile 2 website has seen some, so we're going to talk everything Path of Exile 2. But I wanted to, they did some updates on the POE2 website, which you can see here. And it goes into the world. Like, so go check it out. They added some more stuff to it. And basically all the stuff that was, yeah, no problem, Dennis. Now that they can reveal a little bit what everything that was revealed from the website, from the live reveal, sorry. So we have the 6 classes, we have the 2 out of the 3 ascendancies. Chronomancer, Stormweaver, Ranger with Deadeye and Pathfinder, and we got the Monk with the Invoker and the Acolyte of Chayula. Mercenary with the Witch Hunter. Oh, that's such a mean-ass photo, man. And the Gemling Legionnaire. Have I decided which class I'm gonna play first? No. I thought I did, and now I'm starting to waffle. But I'm not gonna reveal it. I'm probably gonna reveal it on the 5th. Anyway, the website, oh my god, the witch with the blood mage and the infernalist. Is that it? That's it? Yeah, that's it. What is going on here? Hey, what's up, Scott? So anyway, go check out the website, guys. It's got some pretty decent information. It talks about Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Yeah. So it updated. It put some information out there, which is Gucci. What do I got over here? And the POE2 DB got updated. The 5th is your birthday? God, we got to remember that. We have to remember that. Hey, what's up, Scott? So I kind of wanted to do a couple of things, actually. Let me pause this. I wanted to watch. So Open World Games dropped a video. Was it yesterday? Oh, 4 days ago. And basically everything explained, everything revealed, end game, yada, yada, yada. So I kind of wanted to take a look at this. It's an hour and 30. And I just wanted to look at it and see what they're talking about.
Yes, I was flown out to LA to go hands-on with Path of Exile 2, and I have returned with hours and hours of brand new gameplay and all new details from game director Jonathan Rogers. That's what we're going to be taking a look at in this video. We're talking about the extensive in-game system, going over pretty much all of it, the Ascendancy class system, what it's like at max level and beyond, a tease at some of the in-game gear that we can acquire, a super detailed look at basically every system in the game, early access details, and yes, you can get access to this game starting at $30, which is absolutely insane to me. More.
Hold on. What the?
And yes, you can get access to this game starting at $30.
One sec, guys. Okay, that's not it. Ah. Here we go.
$30, which is absolutely insane to me. More on the new Game Plus type system related to replaying the campaign. You guys have got to also see how the actual map system works in the in-game. It's pretty cool. And also
So cool.
how this game is going to be starting out massive, but will also be doubling in size from early access until official launch. We're taking a look at some cool boss battles, classes, so much stuff. But by the way, I am doing a Path of Exile 2 giveaway. So for a chance to win early access, see the link in the pinned top comment. Check
You're gonna have to wait for
But
full
we're gonna go
launch?
ahead
Why,
and
Scott?
see what Jonathan Rogers has to say. This is a very big presentation. By the way, a very special thank you goes out to Grinding Gear Games for their professionalism and providing me with all of this footage, the full-blown presentation for you guys. And remember, I have returned with my own recorded gameplay, so look out for that in the very near future. So yeah, here we go. This is super impressive. Enjoy.
Now what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the character classes that you can going to be playing in early access. And while we're doing that, we're going to explain the different ways that you have to develop your character. Now, as I said before, I like to keep things pretty casual. This isn't some kind of hyper-polished presentation. And Octavian, who's playing, is going to be using cheats and so on. So, you know, he might have to die and revive, but hopefully it goes okay. So we're going to start off with the Monk. So the Monk is a fast melee fighter. He cares a lot about momentum in combat. Now, he does a lot of damage, but he isn't necessarily that strong physically in terms of defenses. So you're going to want to stay back and, you know...
Yeah, by the way, guys, it was revealed by Jonathan that the Monk in all the closed betas had the highest satisfaction from all the players that played the closed beta. But it's a glass cannon. Like, it also had the most deaths. It was the most favorite played class in the testing that they did when they got the feedback from the players, but it's the class that died the most. So it sounds like it's a glass cannon. Finances are a bit tight right now. Well, we're going to be doing key giveaways, Scott, so you'll have a chance.
You know, go into and out of combat very quickly. Now, like all classes,
I'm going to be giving away
we're gonna
keys
want
to the
mix and
beta.
match 2 different combos. And one of the things
Sorry,
we like
to the
do with
early
our skills is
access.
make sure that we've got a lot of things that can take advantage of different situations. In this particular case, Octavian is freezing monsters with this wave of frost, and then he's using Glacial Cascade to kill them if he hits the thing. If the end of the Glacial Cascade hits the monster and it's frozen, then it will do a AoE damage and do a lot of damage. Now, the Monk also has a lot of combo skills. An example, so if you hit monsters using regular attacks, then you'll charge those skills up. An example of this is Tempest Bell. So here we're going to create a bell, and then if you hit the bell, it'll do damage around it. You can also add status ailments to the bell. So, for example, you could freeze it like he was doing there, which will add cold damage, but you could also set it on fire or shock it and this kind of thing. So that's sort of just like a really quick rundown of the kind of skills you can expect on the Monk. But how do you get skills in the first place? Well, the answer to that is skill gems. So the way that you get skill gems are items that you can find in the world, and if you right
Dorbor Lamps. Monk looks pretty fun for sure. Yeah.
Now we're trying to keep the skill system feeling as much as possible.
It's a tough decision. The 6 classes all look good.
You can do here. You can either level up an existing skill, or you can pick a new one, and that kind of interface is quite familiar. We have added things like tutorial videos for every skill.
Frozen locusts will explode when attacked by you or your enemy.
I love this.
But effectively, we just want to make sure we're keeping this simple as possible.
I love that.
Once you've got a skill gem,
That's going to be so new player friendly.
Combine it and use it. This particular skill is called Frozen Locust that creates a little ice ball there, and then you can detonate that with your Glacial Cascade if you want, since it counts as a frozen object. Or the monsters can attack it and explode it that way, or you could use it in front of a boss who's about to slam and explode it that way. So that's a sort of basic rundown on how you get skills, but it's worth mentioning that you can also use skills across other classes as well. So what we saw there was just the skills for this one class. If we open up the screen again, you can see that the skills for the other classes are still available. If you have the stats to use them, you can use them just as well. And then there's lots of different interesting combinations you can use across classes too. So that's just a quick rundown on what you can expect for the Monk. Now we're going to move on to the Sorceress. So the Sorceress is our primary elemental spellcaster. She's going to attack mostly from range. She has high damage but low survivability. The area we're entering here is in Act 3 called the Forge.
Dennis.
This is an area like an ancient Val forge where they were making forging various gold things.
Sounds so nice.
So she's using a combination of lightning and fire here. Once again, there's lots of interesting combos that we want to do, but one of the things that I'd really like to kind of show you to get a taste for one of the other character development areas we have in POE2 is support gems. So support gems are, in POE2, you get them by finding an uncut support. And when you open this by default, what you're going to see is just a few recommendations. If you just go through the different skills that you have on the left, there's different recommended skill gems for each skill that you have. So what we're trying to do is just
Right here.
make sure that for new players, it's very easy for them to pick something that's just going to work.
You can
in
check
this case,
this.
what we might do for Spark is pick Pierce.
If you
The reason why
uncheck
that's
it,
good is
it'll
because
show
Spark
you
is a
all
skill
of
that
them.
creates a lot of projectiles that run around
Again, the
ground and bounce
game's
off
helping
walls.
you.
If we're able to pierce through monsters, it means that they can bounce off a wall and potentially hit a monster again. So that can make it a lot more powerful when you are filling up areas with things like that. We're going to try and relight up the forge here in order to be able to get to the boss. So that's what Octavian's doing here. So one of the other things that we might want to pick is multiple projectiles for one of our skills. So for example, we've got Fireball. If you fire it without multiple projectiles, you get a single fireball that explodes. Throw multiple projectiles on there, and obviously it does what you might expect. You get multiple fireballs. So one of the things that's important is that you can actually move these support gems around between skills. For example, we took the multiple projectiles and instead we put it on, I don't know, this ice. I think you've got an ice skill somewhere, Frostbolt. Then you'd be able to make that into multiple projectiles instead. So effectively, this is the way another area of character progression that you can use in order to improve your characters.
Big time AOE, yeah.
So you want to? I think there was another one as well, actually. Yeah, Firewall. Let's try Firewall. So Firewall is a skill that allows you to create a wall of fire. If you fire projectiles through that, it's going to add fire to the lightning projectiles that we fire through.
Asumari!
So that is, quite a nice.
How are you, man?
Little combo
How you
there as
doing,
well.
bro?
If we want, there's another skill, a support gem I think is quite interesting called Fortress.
How you doing,
if
man?
You throw that on any skill that creates a wall. Was that the one? Yep. Then when you cast it, it's going to make a circle, which you can either put around you or around the monster. So that means you can cast that and then fire in all directions afterwards. So it can add a little bit of power. It might be a little bit easier in this area as well when you've got tight quarters. All right. Now the next thing we're going to show is the warrior. So
That's
the warrior
it?
is our kind of big tanky melee class. Unlike the monk, he's a lot
Super
slower,
hype.
but he hits a lot harder.
Yeah. Who's hype? We're all hyped, man. Come on. 11 more days, boys. 10 sleeps. 10 sleeps. God damn it. Guys, apologies. Apologies with
Just
ads.
going to change to WASD, which works a bit better on this class. Right, so here's the warrior. Now at the moment he's using a two-hand weapon.
Steve,
so, he's going to be
Witch for the
very
win.
Slow, but very hard.
I can't argue with you, man. The witch
But there's also
looks...
something else you can do as well in POE2, which we didn't have in POE1, which is that if you switch to a shield and a one-hand item, then you've also got active block. So
I'm not gonna lie, the witch is in my top
also
2.
useful for just regular trash monsters unless they've got some special ability, but it can be quite nice against bosses. So let's have a quick look at that. So this is a big boss here, and the thing with bosses, they have large telegraphed attacks. So if you use active block here, you can use that to avoid all damage from the front, which is quite nice. Now there are attacks that have a little red flash that you can't
Block is gonna be
the most
huge.
height you can.
There's going to be a lot of builds around block. Can't ever go wrong with witch. Yeah, the witch looks... Oh my god. I don't want to hype it up too much. I have a feeling witch is going to be very, very popular. I don't think we're going to have that much easiness with the boss. Hey Steve, yeah, we're gonna watch a little. I did a video on that today, by the way. I already watched it, but we are gonna watch it. Yes. DMs, not what? Drafts, no DM and Ghazi, yeah. Yeah, I watched. I did a YouTube video summarizing it today. I mean, it dropped today. Yeah, Darth DM. Darth microtransaction, yeah. Tavern Talk, I think it's called.
Talked about yet in Path of Exile in terms of character customization is of course the passive tree. So Path of Exile is really well known for having a giant passive tree. There's 1,500 nodes in the passive tree, and all the classes use the same tree. However, they start in different locations. So the warrior, for example, starts on the bottom left side here.
By the way, guys, like I'm kind of revealing some stuff later on when we watch, to Steve's point, when we watch DMs and Gazzy's. They interviewed Jonathan last night, and go on YouTube. I dropped a video. Well, I made it yesterday, but it dropped today, summarizing that interview. But the reason why I stopped the video is, and this is in the video that I did today. The skill tree, there are 6 starting points. There's 12 classes, 2 classes. They all have the same skill tree, but the only thing that's different with all the classes is the starting point on the skill tree, right? Here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one. So there's 6 of them. 2 starting points, 2 classes for each starting point. So 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. But what we learned in the interview last night with DM and Ghazi's interview with Jonathan is, so these starting points, there's going to be 3 variations to them. And so the 2 classes that start here, class 1 will have 1 variation of nodes. Class 2 that uses this starting point will have their variation of nodes that are appropriate for that class. And then there's the 3rd variation that have to do, they're nodes that are not for those 2 classes that start here, but they're for other classes that want to venture in over here. So each starting point area, I don't know how big that is or how small it is. He didn't get into that. But there's going to be 3 variations, all predicated on which class you pick, if that makes any sense. So I found that very, very interesting from the interview last night. Very interesting. Just goes to show you the level of detail that they're putting into this friggin' game.
And because of the fact he starts there, he gets access to a lot more of the melee-focused elements on the tree. Now, to quickly explain how the passive tree works, there are a few different types of nodes here. The smallest nodes are just like minor nodes, and they'll give very simple increases, like, for example, you've just got melee damage here and that kind of thing. But the thing you're probably going to want to go for are called notables. Notables are the very slightly larger nodes, and they have much more interesting effects. They're often going to depend a little bit on what kind of build you're doing. For example, this one here is 20% more damage against heavy stunned enemies with maces. This is something you're obviously only going to care about if you're heavy stunning enemies a lot, and of course you're using maces. So a lot of these notables are the things that are really going to define your character, and the list of notables is really when it comes to making build guides and things. Is this is what really matters. And in POE2, I've really tried to push the fact that notables are a lot more interesting, so there's a lot more stuff going on with them. But as well as notables, there's also other big nodes on the tree called keystones. And keystones are unique because they have both upsides and downsides. So an example of one right here is called Giant's Blood. It says you can wield 2-hand axes, maces, and swords in 1 hand, but you get double attribute requirements of weapons. So effectively, if you want to use a giant 2-hand sword, but you still want to use a shield, you've got a way to do that. You just have to meet the attribute requirements to do it, which could be tricky for in-game bases. There's also other keystones, a few examples from other classes. There's one here that is from POE1. Maximum life becomes 1, but you're immune to chaos damage. Since chaos damage does double damage to energy shield, this is something that you might want to use. Once you've got that, you don't have to worry about chaos damage anymore. You just need to build for energy shield and not life. Or another example of one that's been modified from POE1 is Mind Over Matter. All damage is taken from mana before life, but you have 50% less mana recovery rate. If you're going to build for this, it means you don't have to worry about life once again, but you will have to build a huge amount of mana pool in order to sustain that. So these are the kind of things that you can pick from keystones that, as I said, have upsides and downsides and interesting trade-offs. Now, there's one other mechanic as well that I want to quickly talk about. So if you go back to the character and just have a look, Octavian was manually switching between, if you go back to the character and see, so Octavian was manually switching between 1-hand and 2-handed weapon sets. He was just pushing X to do that. When he's using both sets, there are things on the passive tree that you might want to be able to use for one or the other. So another unique feature for POE2 on the passive tree is the ability to split passives in 2 in order to allocate one for one set.
Weapon specialization.
So if we allocate ones in red here, these passives will only be used when you've got a 2-hand weapon. And if you allocate passives in green using the other one here, these passives will only be allocated when you're holding the other weapon set, when he's using his 1-hand weapon.
Crazy.
So effectively, if he presses the weapon swap button now, it'll switch from one set to the other. So that means that he can effectively dynamically adjust his passives based on what weapon sets he wants to use. But the other thing as well is in order to make it a lot easier for you to be able to use
Hey, what's up, Ben?
passives in your
This game looks expensive.
For different skills. We also have
You
the
mean to
ability
develop?
just pick for a given skill which
I'm sure it
you
is.
want to use it with. So for example, the Stampede skill here, if you've got a shield, then when you use the skill, it will be blocking the entire time, if you just demonstrate that quickly. So if you use a Stampede, because you hold your shield in front of you, you're blocking the entire time you're charging. And using the one-hand weapon will also be a lot faster because it's got higher attack speed. So that's something we'd much rather use with our one-hand weapon. But when, for example, we're doing our Earthquake or our Double Slam,
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Ben. 11 more days, man.
Damage. So
11 more
turn it off
days.
with the other weapon set. And now when you use your two-hand, now when you use that, it'll switch to your two-hand weapon automatically.
I hope you're doing good, man.
So effectively, this allows you to have multiple weapon sets and do a lot of different things. It's also very good for, for example, on the sorceress earlier, she was using lightning and fire. She can have two different staffs, one that's geared for one that's geared for the other, as well as spec her passive tree out as well. So that's another character development feature that we have in POE2.
Bright lights everywhere. Ferrero Rocher, smooth.
Next up, we want to talk about the Ranger. So the Ranger is our primary bow cast, bow user, and she's all about range and mobility. So one of the first things we did when we were developing the Ranger is we wanted to make sure that everything
Balancing school and POE2 will be interesting.
So this just makes the game feel a lot more fluid.
Yeah.
So she's just a lot more mobile.
I hope you don't have early
But
classes.
she also has a lot of vaulting skills that allow her to jump up. For example, there's one there that freezes monsters. She jumps up and she can jump over monsters and freeze them. So this kind of thing.
The game is going to sound amazing.
Feel a lot more mobile in combat. Make sure you can get away from the monsters, which you need to do, since she isn't necessarily the most tanky character. Now, one of the things you might have noticed if you're a POE1 player is the bottom left of the screen there. There's only 2 flasks, just a life and a mana flask. We've actually changed how the flask system works in POE2 very recently. Now you get 1 life and 1 mana flask.
Going to be a lot of sick days on the 6th.
We found that there was a problem in POE1 called flask piano, where everyone was just sitting there pressing 1, 2, 3, 5 constantly, flasking. The thing is, we've actually buffed
Flask cans
significantly, so that each flask has a lot more charges, but you only get 1 of each type. Now, one of the main things that people were doing in POE1 when they were using flasks is they were using the other flask slots for mostly things that were making them resistant to various element types and so on. And so we wanted to have a system to allow that to still be the case and still have interesting character customization there.
So
we added
good.
a new type of item called charms. Charms charge up using flask charges, so as you kill monsters, but they automatically trigger in order to grant you immunity to certain things at the point when you get those things. So for example here, this is used when you become ignited and then grants immunity to ignite. So if you're having trouble with fire damage, then you can throw that on there. If you get ignited, it'll automatically quench you.
You think you're
then
sick
it will
that
charge up
day.
again from killing monsters. Now, there are lots of different charms that have different
I took the day off.
Abilities. They trigger on different things. They get you. They make you resistant to different things. They can also get mods, from crafting and so on. So you can make them an interesting part of your build. But the point is, they're always automatic. You don't have to manually trigger them. So it kind of solves that problem of having to manually use flasks constantly. You get the ability to use more charms by getting higher level belts. This is relatively lower level, so you've only got 1 charm slot there. As you get higher level belts, you get more slots up to 3, and there might even be some uniques that lead to more charms later on.
Yeah, so you guys see it right here. So this is an area that we're going to be looking at every time we get a belt, right? Because obviously we want those 3 charms filled
as well, of course. Now, one of the other things that we wanted to upgrade as well.
Rujo!
So in POE2, there's a huge amount of encounters and bosses. They're actually.
Oh my god! I totally a brilliant idea. Those charms literally eliminate the utility flasks and the goddamn fucking piano playing. Or the other issue is, you can get rid of the piano playing by, spending all that currency and rolling the modifiers on the flasks. But as you guys know, first of all, for a new player, it's tough to identify what's good and what's not. And that's, I'm talking more about the new player person, right? Even me that has played some Path of Exile. Well, I played a decent amount, but nowhere near you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. Even me, when I was rolling the modifiers on those utility flasks, you know, I still was a little bit confused on, you know, what was really good, what was what was horrible. Like, so understanding it, and then the resources you need, you know, to roll, right? And it sucked all your currency. So it just negates so much stuff in the game in Path of Exile, and just I think it just is much better.
50 bosses.
Yeah, new
early
players
access.
don't.
There's gonna
Yeah,
be 100 in the
exactly.
final game. One of the things we've changed is we've upgraded the map to actually allow you to see all of those on the map. So if you zoom in a little bit there, you can see that there's a bunch of bosses and random encounters around the area. Near to where Octavian is right now, you can see that there's a boss called Silver Blackfist, and that means that in this area there's something to find, a boss to encounter. So yeah, as I said, the bosses
That's how people
often
call you
have,
at work.
Things that you can use to.
Sorry if I'm butchering it,
So it's important to
Rujo.
kill them.
I should make a guide for new players. Some will hate on it, but trust me when I say it'll be useful for us. Yeah, I guess so. I'm just having a hard time keeping up with all the shit that's flying right now. Like we went from nothing to like shit coming from everywhere, you know? Look at these boss fights. Oh my god. Who's gonna sleep? Silverback Blackfist. You're dead.
Forgive me, great creature.
So as you can see, he dropped a book of specialization there, and this is one of the items that allows you to do the split passive points in the passive tree, but it also gives you.
Oh,
more
I'm
passive
saying it
points as well.
correctly?
So
Oh,
it's something that
that's
you're
a
gonna definitely
first.
want to find. Now there are other bosses around the game that have different bonuses and so on, so it's definitely a good idea to explore all the.
I
encounters
usually
throughout the game
mispronounce
and, find all of
everything.
those things. So next we're going to talk about the witch. And while we're showing the witch, it's also a good time to talk about one of the other character progression systems in Path of Exile 2,
The witch.
which is Spirit.
I usually
really
call
got
you
it.
Jeff.
Yep.
You know your Chromebook Plus can give that a little zhuzh.
Promise me I don't smell anymore?
Oh
Can't
my
smell.
god.
Lucky you.
The primary summoner, but she also has a range of other supporting skills. But the thing we want to show you first is just the fact that she often, and in fact all the classes use a resource called Spirit. So there's a new type of skill gem, an Uncut Spirit gem, which you can use here, and that'll give you a bunch of these, another skill screen with a bunch more abilities. What these ones are is for giving you things
Yeah,
that are
exactly.
somewhat
Why does
halfway
Coke
between
have
a
to
passive bonus
advertise?
and an active one.
'Cause they
This
have
one
the
here called
money.
Grim Feast feeds on corpses to bolster your energy shield, but we've got lots of these for all classes.
They don't
use them.
wanna
For
pay
example, like
taxes.
Sorceress, here you've got Arctic Armor. There's one here called Raging Spirits, which means that every time you use a fire skill, it summons a Raging Spirit. So you can, like as I said, it's somewhere between like an active and a passive. But for the minion characters in particular, they're going to want to get a lot of spirit because all minions are paid for with the same
spirit.
resource. So what we're going to do here is, in order to use spirit, effectively what you do is you go to the skill screen, and if you've got minions there, you can just click the little plus button, get some extra minions, and there you go. Now, these are permanent minions, which means that if they die, they're going to respawn again automatically. You don't have to spawn them constantly. And that means that it's during boss fights and things like that. It makes it a...
Yeah, you don't have to
a lot
worry
easier.
about
You don't
it.
have to worry about having to have corpses every time, that kind of thing. But we also do want to support large minion armies, and because of that, we also have minion skills that you can summon from corpses as well. So all these little scorpions here, those are summoned from corpses. While you're clearing, you'll get large armies. During boss fights, it'll be a little bit more focused using the minions, your permanent minions for the most part. Now he's also got some other supporting skills, a lot of things focusing on chaos damage. So he's got a skill called Contagion that'll spread between monsters and other things like Essence Drain and so on, like just a few other chaos damaging skills. Now the other thing with minions is that all the permanent minions come with extra abilities that you can trigger manually. So you see those little markers on your minions, you can use those to explode your minions. So that's the Arsonists, it's their ability. they'll throw a little bomb and explode your minion. But there's also other ones. For example, the snipers have the ability to create little gas clouds. And the more minions you have, the more often you can use those abilities. So effectively, it means that each minion also effectively serves as an extra skill as well as being a
Look
a
at
meat
those
shield for you as well.
scorpions. Yeah, you gotta have the music, Jonathan. Come on.
That's a quick introduction to the witch. But now we're going to show off the mist.
Yeah, the minions. The best minions
wait,
I've
no,
seen.
We did miss something. Sorry about that. Right. So just one other quick thing I wanted to show you as well is that the witch has a lot of other summoning options, even beyond.
Hey,
just the ones
Gears
that
to
we've mentioned,
Game.
because she also has.
How you
things called
doing, man?
specters. So basically, anytime
The calm
you kill a
before the
monster on
storm.
ground, if you
Yeah.
turn into a specter, we've actually created one.
11
here
more
called
days.
a cultist archer. They cost quite a bit of spirit, so we're going to unsummon a couple of the arsonists and put this cultist archer in. Now, the nice thing is that because lots of monsters in Path of Exile have different interesting abilities, all those abilities can be used by the summoner as well. So this one has the ability to summon these like
Really
little
nice
wallop
with the
things
camera,
that
right?
slow
I
monsters
love that you can
and,
zoom.
add weakness to chaos damage as well. She's hopefully she's using it there with those little things that exploded there. Because those are going to make monsters
The hype
weaker
is
to,
really
chaos
real.
damage. It'll be a very good part of this build. It's not as many minions, but the nice thing is that it'll actually end up being more DPS, and I think for bosses it probably is better for this build than not.
Oh my
That's what these
god,
little
they
pulse
just
things are.
annihilated
Right.
it.
So moving on, let's have a quick look at the mercenary.
Yeah.
So the
I gotta be
mercenary is
honest
another
with you.
ranged character, but this time
The
using
minion
crossbows.
thing,
Now, the main difference
although I
between a
like
crossbow
it,
and a bow
it's
is
the
that
only
crossbows
reason
fire
why I
instantly,
probably
and they
won't
also
start
have an ammo
Witch.
mechanic where
Witch.
effectively, you fire until your clip is empty, and then you have to reload. So it plays a lot more like an FPS. And we've got lots of type of FPS type.
I mean,
witches as well.
start the
Like
Witch.
the
I'm gonna
double
play
edged
every
sword here, 'cause
character.
this
Don't get
character
me
plays a
wrong.
lot of
Every
different
class.
weapons. So if you've got like a shotgun type weapon,
You didn't have Scorpion minions on your bingo
you've got
card?
a assault rifle type weapon.
Ooh, listen to them.
Fancy monsters. And various other types. You've also got attached grenade launchers and things like sniper rifle type weapons and so on. Now, this plays very differently to the other classes, but I think it's really fun. It's just like a whole different sort of feeling of the game. This particular area is called Doyani's Sanctum. He's doing a lot of experiments on humans and is very interested in anatomy and kind of merging them with machines. There's a pretty interesting chest on the wall there that I quite like. If you click on that one. Just so there's a cadaver on the wall and it like slices up and drops some items.
Yeah, he
So,
did
that's
say
quite fun.
snipers.
We actually originally
With the
just had
witch,
half a
yes.
person there, but it really just looked like an anatomy diagram, so we needed to do something to show the fact that it was actually a modeled human there. So that was fun. So one of the other things we haven't even talked about, which is another really important character development system in Path of Exile, is of course items. So now items in Path of Exile work like many other action RPGs, but I think that we do a particularly good job of having interesting affixes and suffixes. If you have a look at the items on the character, like they generate. We have normal magic, rare, and uniques. Magic items can have up to 2 mods. Rare items can have up to 6. And effectively, each of the different slots has a pool of mods that's unique to it. But one of the other things that's sort of really important about POE is crafting items. So here we have different crafting items that allow you to add affixes to items. If you use an Orb of Transmutation, it'll turn
This is making reference to the fact, guys, that we're now going to be able to craft on the go, right? So an item drops and you have all these resources to craft. We can do it on the fly, right?
magic item to a 1 mod magic. If you use an Orb of Augmentation, it'll add an extra mod to make it into a 2 mod magic. You've also got Regal Orbs that will turn it into a 3 mod rare, which is normally that have 4, but if you do it this way, you get 3.
Now, I know you're freaking out right now. Oh, Regal Orbs, like those, it takes forever to get their drop rate is not how we know it in Path of Exile 2. It's going to drop at a normal drop rate, much more than what we're familiar with in POE 1.
And then you can use Exalted Orbs to add more mods than that to make up to 6 mods. Now, something in Path of Exile 2 that's very different than POE 1.
Absolutely, you're bang on, Gears to Game.
Items are much, much more common than they were before, and you're really going to be expected to use them throughout the campaign. It's like a really important element of player power.
Look at that.
We've actually changed the way the scaling works in quite a lot of elements to kind of try and make it so that picking up like new blue items is going to actually be an interesting choice for you. Using Regals and Exalts in them are pretty interesting, and also you get Regals by selling by disenchanting rares as well. So effectively, you can get quite a lot of regals in order to upgrade items to rares relatively easily.
There you go.
So now these crafting items, the other thing that's important about them is you can use them on any base type, not just items you can equip. They're used throughout the game for many different purposes, for the end game as well, and many other things.
Hoard?
So, you could use them on flasks.
I'm a
and
hoarder
charms,
already,
all
so
sorts of
I'm
places
good.
where you can use them. So it's definitely something that you're going to want to master and play around with. Now, the other items, of course, that we have is lots and lots of unique items. There are hundreds of them in POE2. There'll be hundreds and hundreds more as we go along. Some of them are pretty interesting. They all do things. They aren't just upgraded rares. They all do something kind of interesting. So, for example, here we have a boot called Corpse Wade. If you put that on there and then you walk through a corpse, it'll make them explode and turn into little puffs of green chaos damage there. That's not something you're going to get on a rare item. Another one here is called Sands of Silk. If you put this one on, what it's going to do is change your dodge roll into a teleport, into a blip that can blink through monsters. Once again, not something you get on a rare, but there's a few others here that are kind of interesting. Next one here is called Couture of Crimson. It makes life leech overflow maximum life, so as you attack monsters, you can get like over health above your normal maximum if you're using life leech. Another one here, for example, pretty simple in some ways, is Quill Rain. This thing here just has ridiculous attack speed, but low damage. If you want to make an interesting bow build where you're just making, where you want to hit huge amounts of times, don't necessarily care about the damage dealt, Quill Rain is going to be something for you. Or another one here called the Wailing Wall. This one here disables shield skills, but makes you able to block damage from all hits without having to raise your shield. So effectively, if you want to be able to block a lot of damage, but you don't care about being able to use other shield skills, this could be a good one. So all of these are what we call build enabling. They're interesting things that you might be able to build a character around, do something interesting with.
Oh yeah.
And they're a big part of how the end game, things that you can find at end game.
People that
are going to be sort of going throughout the
that
game,
build
that
guides
might,
are salivating.
Number 58, the feeling of not jogging, the feeling of winning, number 1.
Oh shit!
So, on the eve of the end,
I just subscribed to him, but oh well.
of Atzoatl has finally come for me. I bear the burden of our future. Pathetic.
Thanks for the follow.
These boss fights are fucking unbelievable.
The ends justify the means. Let's see how you handle this. I can't give up. Not now. The cataclysm must be stopped.
Uh-oh. What's he bringing in?
So you would take our devices and doom us? I think not.
He's bringing in reinforcements.
Listen, I'm just here for the lady. There's no need for all this.
Oh boy.
I've got you now. Free. Please. Now, you are within my grasp.
Thank you for the follow, Leonard. What class and ascendancy are you choosing first? I haven't decided, Rujo. I'm going to be announcing it on my stream on the 5th. But in all honesty, I have not made my decision yet. Get the hell out of that. Yeah, exactly, right there. Yeah, the Tomb Lord better start working out. He better change gyms and trainer. Oh! Ooh. I love the little damage numbers on the top right hand of the boss bar. I love it. It's so nice. It's not in the like, oh, so good. V Gandalf going Necro to start. Love the video so far on it. Nice. So you're going Necro. Cool. Ooh, that one hurt. That's it.
All right. So far we've been showing you footage from the campaign. But one of the really important things in any action RPG is the end game. Now, something that happens almost every time a new action RPG launches is people saying there isn't enough end-game content. We really want to make sure that in POE2 people don't feel that way. And it's something that we actually changed our priorities for as a studio relatively recently.
Monk's going to be S
Now, the
tier.
first 3 acts of POE2 take around 25 hours to complete. This is already longer than many campaigns in other games. On the other hand, people spend hundreds of hours in endgame. We realized that finishing the rest of the campaign for early access instead of working on endgame would actually be a very bad idea. So instead of having acts 4 to 6 in early access, it's much better for us to concentrate on endgame and make that great. If you're a new player, a 25-hour campaign is already a huge game with plenty of content. But if you're an existing action RPG player, then what you're going to care about is the endgame challenges that you have to complete. If we'd launched with a double-length campaign and a bad endgame, we'd effectively have to say, hey, trust us, a good endgame is coming later. But if we launch with a 25-hour campaign and a great endgame, then people can easily understand what's coming when we say, oh, yeah, and there's 3 more acts coming really soon. Now, in early...
You guys understand, like, everybody is kind of not talking about this right now, but if you paid attention during the live reveal, that decision, what Jonathan just said, initially early access was going to be 6 acts and the end game, and they were going to say during the reveal that, you know, there's more end game coming. Now imagine that reaction and that reveal, but instead of that, and he said it in the live reveal, like literally 2 months ago, they made the decision to completely do a 360 or a 180 and say, wait a minute, the end game, this is where the ball gets dropped 99.9% of the time with ARPGs. And we have evidence of it. Diablo 4, Last Epoch, the game gets launched, and what are people complaining about? Not enough end game, not enough game. So literally, while this was all coming down, like they, you know, he used the term like literally 2 months ago, they made the decision. You know what? Let's focus on giving more end game and beefing that up. And they're just going to double. We're going to repeat acts 1 to 3 and tell everybody on the reveal that the other 3 acts are going to come after. Like, think about that decision. Like, and look at the reaction they got by making that decision and having the balls to make that decision. Like, it just speaks to the risks they're willing to take, but also I think it speaks to how intelligent they are as developers. It really does. And people are not talking about this. That is a brave decision. And it, you know, if you look at the reaction from the live reveal, it's been nothing but stellar, like absolutely bangers. So they need to be applauded for it. They're willing to take risks, and the risks that they take usually pay off. And I think this was the right way to go. And what a decision. Like, unbelievable. Unfriggin' believable. Very wise, yeah. D4 has been out over a year and still no endgame content at all. Yeah. Hey, Squeaky Cheeks. Please, sir, may I have some more pants? Yeah, so, and it's not just D4. Like, Last Epoch's same issue, right? Same issue. Like, there's just not enough endgame. And Last Epoch has a lot of good, solid core mechanics. They know the audience love endgame. It's great. Yeah, Jonathan said it. He goes, I don't want to have the same problem when I want early access to feel like a full release. And man, have they delivered. Jesus.
Early access, there are 50 bosses currently and around 400 monster types, but effectively the game is going to double in size during early access and to be 6 acts with 100 bosses and around 800 monster types.
Let's play that again.
Into around 400 monster types, campaign and a great end game. Then people can easily understand what's coming when we say, oh yeah, and there's 3 more acts coming really soon. Now in early access, there are 50 bosses currently and around 400 monster types, but effectively the game is going to double in size during early access and to be 6 acts with 100 bosses and around 800 monster types.
During early access. So for all you haters that were hating on me, I'm not going to be a tester. Early access is, what am I going to do? You guys were giving, not all of you, small minority, were all giving me grief that there was going to be nothing to do in early access. Boy, were you wrong.
Now the great thing is the rest of the game is like 80% there, and so we'll be adding content very quickly during early access, and so you can expect to see a lot of that coming really quickly.
Last Epoch knew it. Hey, Mr. Cove.
Same player level, we've had to add a second difficulty called cruel difficulty, where you repeat.
Yeah, sorry guys, I keep stalling here. I keep stopping. Last Epoch knew it. They just couldn't put content out quickly enough. D4 wanted to be D2 and have hitting max level be the game. Last Epoch, it's a matter of they don't have the resources, and that's manpower and dollars. They don't have the resources to implement stuff quickly. They don't. They're, I don't know, what are they, a 20, 30-man studio? So they can't pump out content. They don't have the like as quick, right? And grinding gear games, and guys, correct me, I think they're 130, 140-ish, 150-ish, around there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be way off. So, when you have more resources, now that doesn't compare to the 8,000 on Blizzard. But yeah, it's a shame because I think they're smart. 11th hour games. Guys, mark my look. Hey, Squeaky Cheek. Sammy Caps, what 3 item slots are below the belt? Charms. They're charms. So the belt is going to have charms, which in essence they literally will give you like, instead of me, they're going to give you things like resistances and like all kind of different things. So depending on the level of your belt, there's a maximum of 3 slots. And depending on the level of your belt is how many charms you can equip, right? So right now, this is a level 1 belt, if I'm not mistaken. So there's only 1 charm there. No worries. Anyway, mark my calendar. Mark my word. 11th hour games just needs cook. They need to cook. They need time to cook. That's it. That's the only problem with Last Epoch is they need time, a lot of time to cook. What was I gonna say? So it's gonna be a top ARPG. Okay? It is. And I get a lot of things wrong, but I also get a lot of things right. I was right about D4. Sorry. Don't hate on me. And I was right about POE2 being a banger, like a lot of people were. Actually, that's Captain Obvious stuff. But anyway, you mark my words. Last Epoch's going to be a banger. It just needs a lot of time to cook. Okay. I'll shut up.
Beat the campaign with all the monsters and bosses harder, but also better rewards. If you sort of look at it in traditional game terms, you can think of it as a kind of like new game plus type thing, but we've actually made quite a lot of changes to the game throughout as well, which you'll probably enjoy as well. And that'll take you to around level 65, which is where the end game begins. So let's talk about what the end game is. So in POE, there are many different in-game grinds. One of the things that's kind of really important is that people feel like they've got a choice between many different types of activities in the in-game. So for POE2, at the start of early access, we're going to have 8 primary in-game grinds that you can do, all of which have their own sort of
Interesting. See, this has changed a little bit. It's not 8, it's 7.
systems for leveling them up, improving them, unique rewards, player power that you can get only from them. And we're going to introduce the first 2 of them right here during the campaign, which are the Ascension Trials.
Yeah,
So the
squeaky
Ascension
cheeks.
Trials in Path of Exile 2, you do encounter them in the campaign to start with, but then they level up all the way to endgame and they have interesting mechanics. So this first one here is called the Trial of the Sekimas, and
Okay, guys, so just to frame that, there's 8 ascendancy points total that we can get. 6 of them are going to be we can earn during the campaign through these trials. There's 3 trials, 3 types of trials. 2 of them we saw on the reveal, and another one's coming when POE2 launches the full game. I don't know if they're going to bring in the 3rd trial during the early access. They never said anything about that. So there's 8 points in total for ascendancy. 6 we can get in the campaign, and 2 we can get in endgame. And the way we get these ascendancy points is doing these trials. There's 2. Okay, in early access there's 2 of them, but 3 in total when the game launches. And he's going to describe them, and you can decide. You can do the 2 trials that are in early access, you can do one over and over and over to get your 6 ascendancy points in the campaign, or you can mix and match. It's up to you. You're not forced to do one or the other. You choose which one you want to do.
and it's actually a sequel to Sanctum League from POE 1. So we've actually done quite a lot of sequels to leagues from POE 1 with new mechanics and new stuff.
Don't let me
but all of them
derail
have
you.
new
Don't
things
worry.
going on. So basically, in order to the Trial of the Sekimas is a place where the Maraketh came to be tested and gain power. In order to gain entry, you need a coin containing the soul of a djinn. And then once you put it in the relic altar there, then you can enter and containing the soul of a djinn. And then once you
Sorry, I'm just reading what it says.
put it in the relic altar there, then you can enter and start playing. Now, the trial is made up of various different rooms, and it works a little bit like a roguelike type encounter system, where effectively you pick each room, and then within each room there's a different challenge. This one is a ritual trial, I think, which has these monster summoners.
Jonathan, don't be careful with these rogue-like, Diablo-like terms, man. Be careful.
So they're effectively summoning monsters, and you want to be able to kill those as fast as you can to complete the room.
You pulled a Sammy in the new league? You were level 75 when you started maps?
That one was relatively easy. So once you've completed the room, you can go into the next room to get your reward.
What's up, Drake? Yeah, Mr. Cove, this
Now,
league,
let's
you
say
get
the
so much
key.
experience. It's not even
Keys can be
funny.
used at the end of the trial to be able to get rewards, but effectively you have to be able to survive the entire trial to be able to claim them. Now this is the map for the trial.
Log
You can
in.
effectively pick what type of room you'd like to go to next. There are a few different issues. One of them is that the next room will have a type, so for a type of trial. For example, here's an hourglass trial, and it also has a type of reward, but also some of them have boons or afflictions that might get you. So this one says, for example, when you enter it, that it'll afflict you with blunt sword on entry, which means you and your minions deal 40% less damage. We probably don't want to do that as a minion build, but they have better rewards in exchange for that. So once you've picked your room, you can go and do the next one.
That's pretty cool, though, because that map, you decide what challenge you want to take on. And I love the fact that it shows you the reward if you finish that floor. So I think it was bronze or copper, and then silver, and then gold. And obviously, the higher the key, the more difficult it's going to be, because that determines which caches you open at the end. I'm sorry, but I might never do Sekium Trials. Trials of Chaos just feels way better. Lennon Dove! Yeah, Drake, that's because you know all the mechanics from POE 1, right? So it's depending on the Trials of Chaos, depending on which version of content from POE that, you know, that you like is the one you're going to play. Hey, Takushi. I'm doing everything I can not to watch videos about the passive tree nodes. Want to go in blind as much as possible. Take my time, learn my stuff on my own. Totally with you, man.
Now this one's a time trial. You have to survive for and kill all the monsters. Now one thing that I didn't mention at the start of this is that unlike in the normal game, if you take hits in this mode, then you're going to lose a resource called honor. If you run out of honor, then you have to leave the trial.
John!
So
What's up?
effectively, you
To
want
be honest, the only thing I
play these runs
didn't
as hitless
like
as
is this.
possible, and that means
It's
that all the
Sanctum.
monsters we've
You
selected,
hate Sanctum.
usually have
Yeah.
to be avoidable in some way, have dodgeable mechanics, and
Harder
that's
content,
sort of
better keys.
why,
Yeah, well, the
Taylor
modifiers
is
are going to
playing as
increase,
safely as he
right?
possibly can here. He doesn't want to get too close to the boss or that monster there because he doesn't want to lose honor. Oh yes, it is. Okay, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. All right, so once the trial is complete, once again, you can go and get the reward, which in this case is a bronze key again, because we picked one that had the same reward.
So
we'll do
pay
one more.
pay attention to the
what's this?
rewards and the modifiers on the floor.
Yeah, sure, let's do it. All right, cool.
Okay.
This one's called a chalice trial. Effectively, there's a blood chalice here, which you need to fill with blood by killing rare monsters in this area. Once you've killed all the rare monsters, you can continue. Now there are a lot of different rooms in
McRich.
there are around 70 in level 1, and they're random what you get each time. So you should expect each run to feel quite different. And the kind of stuff you can expect to find,
you can't install the
boosts
game,
and
bro.
afflictions you get, the monsters that you'll face, this kind of thing. All of these are very different. And there's also 4 floors as well. This is just the first floor. Each floor looks different and has.
Yeah, Levend Off Sky, you're not installing Path of Exile 2 right now. And number one, there's no installation required. And number two, the same loader that you used for Path of Exile 1 is where you're going to go and play Path of Exile 2. So there's no installation required. You're not putting a separate loader or whatever. Wherever you go to play Path of Exile 1 is where you're going to go play Path of Exile 2.
Different mechanics,
sorry, guys.
rewards, and so on as well. So there's quite a lot of content here. And once again, like I said, there's got to be ways as well for it to sort of expand into in-game, have more, have ways to expand it and ways to make it both more damaging and more rewarding.
You won't be touching Sanctum unless I plan a bow. Yeah, thanks, but no way to play now, right? No, you cannot play Path of Exile 2 right now. Nobody can.
Where's that other red?
These are all videos.
There he is. Oh, avoid that one. All right. So that's this trial complete. And once again, you can get the reward you picked, which I believe
Yeah,
is
December
Sacred Water in
6th.
this case.
Nobody's playing Path of Exile 2, buddy.
So Sacred Water is
December
a resource
6th.
that you can use throughout your run. Effectively, it's a currency that can be used in a shop that you can find throughout the run as well. Water is obviously a very hard resource in the desert. So in the interest of time, what we're going to do now is skip to the last room in this floor of the Sanctum, which is a boss room.
Everybody's
Looks like
taking
they got a
notes.
couple ringers. Nice
Okay,
stick. Is that antique?
so while we're on this commercial break, Sammy, have you done the accounts merge thing? I didn't do it. Grinding Gear Games did it, and it's been done already. And everyone should already have their new account set up. It's done automatically. Grinding Gear Games did it. Stash tabs and items are consolidated. It's still separate. No, you're going to be able to. MTX is going to be whatever you have in Path of Exile 1, microtransactions, that's like that they can move over in POE 2 is going to be there between PC and Xbox. That is not the case for PlayStation. I did a video on that. You guys can go check it out. They removed regional pricing on Steam, so now the price for supporter packs increased by 100% in Southeast Asia. Wow. Damn. Guys, look at these friggin' boss fights, man. And this is the... Oh, this is the Trial of Secamus. Okay. Oh, really, Drake? I know, right, Steve? You don't have to worry about minions dying and having to resurrect them. It's... The quality of life in this game just hits everywhere.
So that's the boss of the end of the first floor of the Sanctum, but there's lots more bosses in Sanctum to find. As I said, there's multiple floors. They each have interesting things. Now, at the end of each floor, you'll get the ability to pick from various different chests, the keys that drop...
No, there's a total of 8, Drake. There's a total of 8 ascendancy points, 6 that you can get in the campaign, 2 that you will get in endgame through whichever trials that you want to do. In early access, there's going to be 2 trials, which we saw in the reveal. There's going to be a third one, and you're not forced to do both of them. You can pick and choose which one you want to do. You can do one over and over, or you can do both of them, but it's 8. That makes me want to do even more. Open seats is a crime. I'm playing Witch. Oh, that trailer UI fooled me then?
Give the ability to open these caches here.
There you go.
You want to pick which one because each of them have different types of rewards in them. Now, the other thing that you get to do here is use the Altar of Ascendancy. Now, unfortunately, we forgot to reset the Ascendancy class, so you're not going to be able to see the list there when we did the thing before. But effectively, once you've the first time you use the Altar of Ascendancy, you get to pick between 3 different Ascendancy classes. In early access, there's only going to be 2 available for each class, and we're going to be adding the rest later. And those give you interesting things that are only available to your class because no other class gets those things on the passive tree. Now, with Ascendancy classes in POE2, we've really tried to do a lot better in terms of how interesting the things are. For example, this particular class, and because I can't see the name on the screen, I forgot what it's called, Infernalist, right? It's got some pretty interesting abilities. One of them here is called the Hellhound. So this one gives you the ability to summon a Hellhound. When you summon it, it has a few abilities. One of them is that it sets everything next to it on fire. It's a minion, so because we're a minion class, this can be really useful. But also it takes damage for you. Every time you take damage, it gets transferred to the Hellhound. So, you know, he's a really good boy. Another one that's pretty interesting is that, if we just respec quickly away from that, is turning into a called Demon Form.
So this is the Witch,
so when
guys.
you use demon form, you turn into a demon.
Oh my God,
demon,
that's
you lose
so
life constantly,
badass.
but you also have much higher spell damage and much faster cast speed. The longer you survive, the higher those numbers get. So you know, but you're going to continuously take damage. So you're probably, if you're going to use this, you probably want to do a build that involves getting high life regeneration in some manner, so you can survive as long as possible and do a large amount of damage. So that's an example, just 2 nodes from the Infernalist. But of course, you know, there's lots of interesting nodes there, and you're going to want to ascend, get more points by doing more ascension trials, and you know, continue to get more player power.
Currency, maps.
In POE2, you actually all of the ascension trials. Oh, that's right. Sorry, we haven't even finished this one yet. All right, hang on. Where was I? All right, that's right. Okay, so Let's talk about how this extends into in-game. So effectively, as you go through
Nippity.
this trial, you might find items called relics.
Welcome.
And relics are these items here, which can be crafted. You can see an example of a blue one here. This one says monsters have a 4% chance.
No, I haven't done a video on it, Mick
double
Rich.
sacred water and gain 16 sacred water at the start of the trial. Now, these are ways that you can effectively improve your odds as you go through, but there's some pretty interesting ones as well. Let's have another look at another couple. Bosses deal 4% reduce.
Yeah, Mick Rich, personally, like to be economical. Sorry, guys. I'm just answering a question and I don't want to talk over Jonathan. Personally, just to be safe and economical, Mick Rich, I would do a currency tab and a map tab. And then I would wait till the game launches and then see. And then just buy the premieres and all that kind of stuff, right? As far as stash tabs, to be safe and economical. If you're like me, you don't give a shit and you're a hoarder, then yeah, I would buy, you know, all the premiere tabs, currency tab, map tab, you know, I would buy it, right? But again, if you want to be economical, just those two, and then pull the trigger when you see in game what you really need. Sorry, everybody.
These ones are very low level and simple, but they can get quite powerful. If you click on the relic altar before you start your run, put a coin in, then you've got these slots here that you can put the relics in, and you can also unlock more slots by doing more. By doing this more in order to be able to put more in. There are also unique relics.
Yeah, no problem,
for
Mick Rich.
example, this one
Anytime,
here
man.
That says that the boss at the end of the entire trial
Yeah,
will drop
Steve.
a specific unique item, but your maximum honor is 1, which means you can take exactly 1 hit, which means that you need to do a hitless run in order to be able to get that unique. So there are lots of other interesting unique relics that do other things. You know, the ability to extend this.
Absolutely, Lennon Dove. You can join my
And,
guild.
one of the
Everybody
reasons
can
you
join my
wanna do
guild.
that is
No
because,
problem.
like all of these different in-game mechanics, there's unique player power that only comes from it. So in this particular case, we have jewels. Jewels are coming back.
Yeah, every supporter pack that they're currently selling for Path of Exile 2, the dollar amount that you spend, so to Steve's point, 30 USD for the first one, you get the equivalent in store points, 300. You buy the $100 one, you get 1,000 store points. So you're literally getting store points back for the money you spend on the supporter pack, which those store points obviously you can spend in game in the store, you know. So you're literally getting your money back in points, along with a key and whatever transactions that microtransactions come with that specific pack.
Back in POE2 as well. You can see an example of one of them here. These are things that you can socket into your passive tree to be able to get more stats. So this one says 15% increased maximum energy shield, and minions have plus 7% to all elemental resistances. Now, because of the fact that you can roll these yourself and stack them, there's some pretty interesting things you can do with jewels. And there's also jewels that have other kind of random and weird effects. Like, for example, this one here says says that 25% increased effect of small passive skills and radius. So this one actually modifies the other skills on the passive tree to improve them. You know, with some interesting things and some interesting overlaps, you can do some pretty cool stuff with those as well. There are, of course, unique jewels and other things going on, and I won't go too much into it, but effectively, this does scale all the way in-game, has uniques, has ways to scale it, and a lot of interesting things you can do.
Crazy.
The next trial we're going to talk about is the Trial of the Chaos God. Now, unlike in POE 1,
what's up,
every
Lance?
time you want to get more ascendancy points, there's a new trial.
You've watched it 8 times, Lance? Oh my God, that's hilarious. Welcome, bud.
So this is the second trial that you can do, and once again, it's also an in-game mechanic that that can be expanded upon. So we're going to use the
At
mercenary for
least.
this one. Now this is the one you're going to encounter in Act 3 for the first time, but as I said, it extends to in-game as well. Finishing the Ascension trial was kind of an ancient rite for the Vaal that conveyed power and respect. Entry requires a token from a strange entity called the Trial Master. And this is actually a sequel to a league from POE 1 called Ultimatum, but it works very differently. So to start with, he's going to offer the trial, make the offering to the trial, and then he can walk in.
Little commercial breaks, guys.
Now, before you enter each room in the Trial of the Chaos God, you're going to have to pick from one of the downsides that's going to affect you for the entire rest of the trial. So the Trial Master is here, and he's going to offer you an item to start with. Here's the item that you're going to get if you complete this room. And he's also going to say, pick one of these 3 things that's going to potentially hurt you. In this case, we're going to pick blood globules, which will one of the easier ones. And what that's going to do is mean that these blood balls are going to appear above your head and slam down periodically.
Are you ready, Challenger?
I love his voice.
As you walk into the room, he's going to summon a bunch of these monsters. Now, each of the rooms has different mechanics.
I know,
This one's very
Steve.
simple. You
I
just have to
know.
kill all the monsters.
It fucking drives me crazy on Chrome. Drives me crazy.
That's that blood globule I talked about earlier.
If anybody's on my Discord and you know of a
Blood
really
globule
good
may not
fix
seem
for
very
the
threatening right
ads,
now, but as
please
you go through each
DM
room,
me
you're
on
gonna add more and more
Discord.
mechanics that are going to hurt you, and so it can get quite.
You have no idea. Sorry, guys, I'm off topic. You have no idea how many times I have to re-edit a video, a certain section of it, because of a fucking ad. Sorry, guys.
Intense by the time you've gotten to the end.
Little bitch.
Who's next?
There we go. So we've defeated all the monsters in this room, and we can move on to the next one.
I think there's four levels. Or am I mixing up mechanics here?
So as we move to the next room, once again, the Trial
I mean,
Master is
4
gonna give us
rooms.
a choice. Basically, sort of double or nothing. Do you want to take another reward and make the game harder again, or do you want to take the rewards you've already received so far and leave with your ill-gotten gains? In this case, obviously, like most players, you're probably going to want to pick another reward and keep going. So there's the existing one, blood globules, and that'll keep stacking up. But we're also going to add shocking turrets here, which are going to add turrets through the room, which you'll have to deal with as well. Now, this one is a trial that requires, it's a timed encounter type trial.
Live.
As you can see, there's those lightning turrets there now, which you also have to deal with, and it's going to spawn a lot of monsters that you have to survive. You don't have to actually kill all of them. If the time runs out, then they're all going to go away, so yeah, you can, you just have to survive.
Okay, thanks, Wiki Cheeks.
And the Vaal had a culture of risk-taking, so all these kind of risk versus reward mechanics very much work for them. The way they crafted and a bunch of other things like that all sort of relate to this kind of risk-taking behavior. He's stuck. Uh-oh. You've only got 4 seconds. Just survive for 4 seconds.
Look at his.
There we go. Okay.
Jonathan was freaking out. He's like,
Managed to, flask
he's
through it,
gonna
so it's
die.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, Nepity, how much stuff is
So
broken.
as you get towards the end game,
It's gonna be
there'll a
really
very
interesting.
Significant number of rooms you can do in a row. You can just keep on making it harder and harder. In this first version of it, you're going to in this first version of it, you only have to do 4 rooms to be able to ascend. But once again, if you can't do them all in a row in one go without dying, then you'll lose your entry ticket. So you'll have to get another one to get in. So once again, like the other challenge, you'll want to be make sure that you're ready before.
Make
you
sure
do this
you're
trial.
ready, yeah.
Now this particular one involves pushing this idol forward. When you're near the idol, it moves forward. When you're as you get further away, it falls down and doesn't move anymore.
Xander.
So, ideally, you can get close to it. Now, as you move it forward, it's also going to spawn these, trigger these monster elevators with monsters that are going to come down as well.
Not dinner.
All right, finally. That one dragged a little bit, but it's okay. We finally got there in the end. All right. So just like in Sanctum, there are also bosses that you can get as you go through here. The order of them is random, and so they can be very hard or relatively easy depending on when you encounter them.
Have I
and what
seen the
things that you
meta
pick
skill
for.
named Elemental
For the boss,
Invocation?
once
No,
again,
I have
Master will
not.
ask you to pick, do you want to bail now or do you want to pick something else?
Which we're familiar with, Jonathan.
That looks okay.
So he did 4.
Protect them.
So here's one of the bosses you can find in the Trial of the Chaos God.
Here we go.
Chaos will bring you to your end.
Melee stuns look strong. Oh my god. Ooh, he almost lost it there.
That tornado has killed him the most times in practices, by the way. It's lethal.
I think I'm gonna have to get a death counter, boys. Oh, these boss fights are gonna be, oh, so satisfying. Ooh.
Will be your downfall.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be ripping.
So that's as far as we're going to
Okay,
go. In
let's
this,
go
trial
ascend.
for now at this low level, and of course, once again, you'd be able to ascend here if this is as far as you can get during the campaign. But there's a lot more stuff you can get. So the Trial Master now is going to give you the rewards that you've earned throughout the trial, and there are a lot of rewards that are unique just to this trial. So let's go through a few of these that we've got here. Now, the first thing he's going to offer, one of the things we've got here is an item with a socket in it. Now, we removed gem sockets from POE2, but we've actually re-added back sockets in a much more traditional way as things that you can put items in to get extra mods. So if you have a look down the left there, you can see a thing called a soul core. This is a soul core of thunder. If you put it in a weapon, you get lightning damage. If you put it in a shield, then an armor, you're going to get 10% lightning resistance.
No
This is player
neppity.
power you can't get any other way than sockets.
I
It's
haven't.
only unlocked through content that you can get through here. Now, if you want to be able to actually add sockets to existing gear as opposed to using the sockets that are on gear that you get from here, you're going to have to use these things called Vile Orbs. Vile Orbs modify things unpredictably, and they work a little bit differently than they used to in POE1. Now, the first thing I want to mention is the fact that these corrupt items, and what that means is that after you've used this, you can't use it on another item again. So that's the last thing you want to do in your crafting step. This particular one here rolled with it got an extra mod. It got 14 to 20 chaos damage as an extra mod.
I
as well as
agree
being
with you,
corrupt.
Dennis.
But they can also do other things. So we'll use it on some of our gear here. You can equip it. I think you can leave it equipped. Yeah. So we're going to use it on his bow here. Okay, so that one gave him a socket. Excellent. So now he'll be able to upgrade his bow with a soul core to get an extra mod. So that's really valuable. Probably wouldn't have picked that one, but that's fine. That's what he had. We've also got, let's see in some other results. That one, okay, so that one just modified random mods on the item. So probably not good, not what you wanted. That's a bad outcome. On the other hand here, all right, added another mod, 25% increased armor and evasion. That's a very good roll. So effectively the theme with these things is that you're going to get random results. You don't probably want to use them on the items that you've got equipped because they're likely to potentially damage them or make them worse. But there's player power that you can get from this that you can't get any other way. So it's something that you're definitely going to want to be able to do as you go through the game. Now, of course, because we got to the end here, we can also ascend. For this particular one, we might as well just ascend this character. So there's the Witch Hunter, which you could pick, and might as well just pick a simple node. I mean, There's a basic one there, it's just culling strike. You might as well put that. We didn't actually plan to show this character class while we're doing here, so just, ascending while we're at it. Now, right there, you also see there's an entrance to the Trial Master's Tower. That's like a special endgame thing, which we're not going to show you, but effectively that's the pinnacle boss for this particular endgame grind. But let's talk a little bit about how you're going to expand on this. So if you go back to the start of the area, the keys not only have let you get into the trial, but they also going to have mods on them as well that allow you to do different things. And just like the Vaal always have, we want to make sure that there's things that have both bonuses and downsides, that they're very double or nothing type culture. So this one here says sacrifice up to 10 exalted orbs to receive double that on trial completion. So effectively, you can go double or nothing on currency as well, but it also has minus 25% to maximum player resistances, which is a pretty nasty downside. You can roll these things and they have some pretty interesting mods on them. So it's once again, it's one of those things you can specialize into in game.
That
of course, there are also
is.
uniques only available here.
Can you imagine
various other things
failing and
available here.
getting
So,
minus
yeah,
20
if you want to,
res?
Want to do that. So those are the two trials that extend into
Place
in-game
your
that are
bets,
during the
mechanic.
campaign. But now we want to show you how the actual in-game, sort of primary in-game system itself works. So we're going to have to get a higher level monk to be able to show you that. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the plot of this, but this is where you're going to start in the in-game. And just like in POE1, we have a thing called the map device that you're going to be using to travel around. But what you actually get when you click on the map device is going to be quite different.
Shop for the gamer on your list without breaking the bank. With Lenovo.com's holiday sale, you can...
Now, the storyline here effectively is that there's corruption from the beast.
This is the best part right here. Like, look at this. Look at this world map.
To spread across the land, and you're going to need to try and cleanse it. Now, this is actually an infinitely scrolling map that goes in all directions and contains all areas you can go to. You can go to each map only one time, so you're going to want to, you're going to try and want to find, interesting places to go. Now, this is the primary thing to explore after you finish the campaign, and there's all sorts of things to find on here. There's bosses, there's towers, there's beast corruption, there's rare areas with interesting mechanics, all sorts of in-game content that you can see these icons for around the place, and hideouts, roving merchants, and even cities. Now, effectively, in order to travel to one of these, what you're going to do is click on it, and then you can travel to it using a waystone. Now, these waystones effectively work like maps did in Path of Exile 1. You can craft them and so on as well. Once you've gone to the map, then what you're going to find is a randomly generated... Oh, okay, he immediately clicked the portal back.
I do that all the time.
So what you're going to find here is a randomly generated area, and we've really ramped the random generation up to 11 for this. Obviously, all the monsters here are also going to be random, and one thing I will mention is that the variety of monsters in POE2 is a lot higher, and they have a lot more interesting abilities, which means that interesting combinations of them in maps can really produce interesting results. These particular ones that were randomly picked here seem to be relatively simple, so I guess that point isn't that well made today, but that's all right. Now, this monk is effectively the same kind of build that we were doing before, but it's a lot faster for in-game. But what we're going to do is we're going to amp it up a little bit further just to sort of see some of the kind of things that you can do in in-game as well. So after we've finished clearing this pack, then we'll do that. So let's open up this, and what we're going to do is this is a character that freezes a lot of things, so we're going to add a cast on freeze gem here. And what that's going to mean is every time you freeze a monster, it has the ability to cast a spell of your choice. In this case, we're going to cast Frost Wall. And we're going to add Fortress and reduce cooldown to that, so that we can cast them all the time. And they're going to go in a circle around the monster that got frozen.
The builds are going to be crazy.
It's going to create a lot more frozen objects around the monster. When you use your Glacial Cascade, they're going to do a lot more damage and explode for a huge amount of damage as well. So the goal here is to cleanse the corruption on the map, and you do that by killing all the rares, and if there's a map boss, then killing the map boss as well. Now, there are map bosses that can spawn in every map, but we've actually decided to not have a map boss every time you go to them, and instead you can see which areas have map bosses on the main map. What that means is that we've got the ability to have the map bosses be a lot more challenging, but also drop a lot more items as well, because you don't encounter them quite so frequently. And you can also choose, do I want to do bossing, or do I want to just grind maps and do other things? So it kind of gives the player that choice. So once you've completed the map,
they said 1 in 4 maps will have a boss
in this area, and then effectively allows you to continue to explore. Now, this map is kind of somewhat randomly explored, so don't concentrate too much on that. But effectively, you're going to be expanding outwards from the center. Now, of course, the other thing you can do is craft maps with currency items. So if we get an orb of transmutation here, we can use that on there to get a mod on the item. Now, the prefixes are benefits to you, and the suffixes are negatives to you. So this is something that we've changed a little bit how it works. So that means that you can just get a map that's just a straight up boon to you if you do a single. If you turn it into a magic with only one mod, but of course if you're going to turn it into a rare, you're going to get a variety of downsides and upsides, and all of them can have different effects. So once you've cleansed corruption from maps, then you can start to unlock the Atlas tree, which allows you to further upgrade your progression system for this thing. So here's the Atlas tree here. Now I've actually made. What we've actually done here is all the different types of content have their own trees. Each one of them is kind of like an ascendancy class, and then for that content. But there's also a primary tree that you get just for killing maps. So there's a tree here for cleansing maps. There's also a tree for killing bosses, and then trees for doing other content on the Atlas as well. So you can kind of you don't have to choose between, or rather, you can choose to do a piece of content, but you're not going to be losing anything from any of the other pieces of content when you decide to do them later. Effectively, they all have their own kind of scaling in that way. So a random example here, 20% increased magic monsters in your maps. Another random example, I don't know, 20% increased quantity of waystones found on your maps. But there's also like keystones here, like rare and unique monsters in your maps have 1 to 2 additional modifiers. It also adds extra bonuses to drops as well. So these are the kinds of things that you can get on the tree, and that's one of the progression systems as well, effectively, as I'm going through the Atlas tree here. But it's also kind of the gateway to a lot of the other mechanics. So for example, here we see a map that's got this little hand icon, and that means that there is a breach in this map. There's also the boss icon there, which indicates there's a boss there as well. So we know there's a breach in there. If you're looking for breaches, this is where you want to go. You can effectively always see the content that you're going to be able to face in maps as you look around the tree. And there's also going to be mechanics for adding more of them later, which we'll talk about as well. So at the start, you'll just have to find them randomly, but later on you can add them to maps too. So let's have a look at this.
Hold up! Manscaped's 25% off Black Friday sale is happening right now.
I got something that's gonna make him.
All right, so breaches. So Breach is another one of the League sequels that we've done for Path of Exile 2.
Thanks for the follow.
And it's also one of the sort of pinnacle in-game content grinds that you'll be able to progress through. Breaches are
Hey,
small
Try!
in reality that let you see into an alternate
How are you, man? Welcome, Raiders.
And touching a breach will cause it to expand and reveal all the demons there that are lurking on
Hey,
that
Try,
plane.
how you doing, man?
So, we're gonna
How
have
was
to
your
walk,
stream?
directly there,
Thanks
which
for the
is gonna trigger
follow.
immediately, so you won't get to
Oh
see
my
it
God.
before you
Whoa,
trigger it.
whoa, whoa.
But, Octavian can do that.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the
when
follow.
trigger it,
Thank you,
this is a
thank you.
horrible location for it. When you trigger it, all of these
Thanks for the
demons will start
follow.
to come out of the,
Oh, boy.
Thanks for the follow.
Other plane.
Thanks for the follow.
Now,
Oh,
as you kill
boy.
demons, it's going to extend the amount of time.
Thanks for the
If you're
follow.
a very good
Thank
player,
you, guys.
and
Thank you.
kill
Try,
demons very
try.
quickly, you can
Thanks
keep
for the
this
Try, I
going
hope you
for a
had a
long
good
time,
stream,
like
brother. Hope you had a good
with it.
stream, man.
If you're not as good, or maybe your build just isn't as strong, then you're not necessarily going to be able to do that. So it's very hectic.
Welcome,
Thanks
guys.
for the follow.
Welcome, welcome.
So effectively,
Thanks for the follow.
You have to try. If
Oh,
you're
boy.
very
Thanks for the
fast at
follow.
kill speed,
Oh,
you're
boy.
going to be able to take very good advantage of this particular mechanic.
I gotta say, I'm a little bit overwhelmed right now.
Own rewards, which is why you're going to want to do them. Let's just have a look on the ground.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Did it drop any? Breach splinter. Right. So one of the so there's a couple of things that they drop. So one of them is catalysts, and the other one is splinters. So which one should we talk about first? How about the catalysts? So catalysts are a reward you can get only from Breach, and effectively what they do is increase the quality of specific modifiers on jewelry. So this one here says, adds quality that enhances life modifiers on rings and amulets. So effectively this is going to allow him, if you use that on your ring or amulet, it'll allow you to increase the, it'll add life quality that'll make the life roll on that amulet go up. This is an area of player power that sort of seems relatively...
Welcome, guys. We're just watching Open World Games video on POE2, obviously. Anyway, welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Sammy Caps. Try. Thank you, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you had a great stream. And no worries. Go get something to eat. Go get some sleep. This is the hardest worker in Path of Exile 2. Go get some rest, buddy. Anyway, I hope you had a good stream, man. And guys, for those guys in my community, I'm pretty sure you already follow, but if you don't, please Talkative Try on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called. Go give him the support he deserves. He creates great content. So anyway, thank you, Try. Appreciate it, man.
Subtle, but there's actually quite a lot to this that you can do. Breach also drops Breach rings that are one of the best ring-based types because they allow quality to go up to 50, which means that you can use those as base types to create some really crazy rings for the end game as well. So that's one of the forms of player power you get from Breach. The other thing you're going to find in Breach that will sort of unlock the pinnacle boss are these Breach splinters. So if you collect 300 Breach splinters, it'll allow you to make a Breach stone. That will
Actually, Try. You were at this LA event, right? If I'm not mistaken. If you're still here. I'm pretty sure you were invited to the LA event, right? No, not that one? Ah, okay.
The Breach domain where you can fight one of the pinnacle bosses. Now we're actually going to show you this pinnacle boss for this particular league.
The first two. Got it.
But we're not going to show you any of the other pinnacle bosses in this demo. But all of the different types of league, all the different types of content that we have here, all have their own pinnacle bosses that we can do. Now, this is effectively a map that's a single large breach, and you're going to have to be able to race through the entire map in the amount of time to be able to get there and finish it.
The sound of this game is going to be unreal.
Actually live, and you can see the kind of creepy hand stuff they've got going on as their theme there. That's as it gets revealed.
I don't know, guys. The monk looks badass.
Thanks for the follow.
Thanks for the follows, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for the follow.
It looks like a really fun build to play too. A really fun class. Mick Rich, it's in your top 2 to play. A few days left to choose. Yeah, I'm not going to decide until the final day, and I'll announce it on my stream on the 5th. I keep going back and forth. Draconic. Sark's going to be awesome if I can figure out resource management. How you doing, Draconic? Come on, is there really a bad choice when you come and think about it? Like, I'm gonna play all of them.
Looks like he did it. All right, so now
It's just a matter of which one I want to do first.
That dreamed. We in nightmare. We that are one.
Wow. Ranger looks kind of least exciting. I don't know about that, McRich. Scratch, you're going to start with Monk with elements. Manjinkoba, with as much content as they're releasing, I may only get through 3 classes before they release it. I hear you, man. I hear you. I am not rushing. Early access is I'm taking my time. I'm learning everything I can learn. No, oh my god, look at these boss fights. Yeah, Adam, it depends on the other ascendancies. That looks like pretty good damage. Stormweaver plus overcharge support can mean null duration shocks if it works. How you thinking really spam? I know I keep mentioning this, guys, but the little damage numbers, how they've handled that, putting it on the top of the health bar of the boss, is such a nice detail. I'm rethinking my death counter. I don't know if I want that number displayed. Wow, it's taking a little bit of time to put down Zeist. You're just gonna count how many times they say oof or shit? We should make an oof counter. There you go, you got him. So good.
All right, so that's an example of a pinnacle boss, and we're not going to show you the rest of them, but that's just kind of give you a flavor for what an in-game pinnacle boss might be like. But just like all of the pinnacle bosses, when you defeat them, you're going to get points for the ascendancy tree. Sorry, not ascendancy tree, for the Atlas tree for that particular content. So this is the Breach one here. Now the idea is that you kill the boss, you make the whole league more difficult, and then you can beat the boss again at a higher difficulty and get more points. So the first point here you're going to see is +1 to Twisted Domain difficulty, which is going to effectively make Breach harder. It says here difficulty causes monsters to have increased damage and toughness, as well as making them grant more experience to drop better items. But there's also effectively specific nodes that will give you interesting changes to that league mechanic. So for example, classed hands in your maps have a 25% chance to be guarded by a pack of magic monsters. Breaches in your maps have 50% more classed hands. Those things are effectively like breach chests that you find as the breach expands there. So that's like a bonus that you might choose to pick. There's lots of other ones here that you could pick as well. And as I said, each of the different types of content all have their own trees here that you can do your own stuff with.
Unbelievable.
So, that is actually, wait, there's one more thing that we forgot to tell you about, and this is kind of important, which is tablets. Okay, right, I should have gone over that earlier, so we'll just do it now. So effectively, right, when you do a breach in your maps, one of the things that you might find, and this is kind of important, are tablets. Now, tablets are items in your inventory that you can use with these towers. If you open your inventory there and have a look at just find a good place. So when you play breaches, you might find these breach tablets. And what this does is effectively adds more breaches to maps in the vicinity. So this says add 8 maps in range. 8 maps in range contain breaches, and breaches in your map spawn an additional rare monster. So if you open a tower,
hey, Goose.
it gives you this interface. You can put the tablet in there, and then when you use it affects
it's going to be
and adds
epic
a bunch of
fun
breaches around the place. So what that means is that all the content is self-reinforcing. If you want to play breaches, then you're going to find this, these tablets. You're going to use those to add more breaches to maps in the area and also boost what the breaches are doing.
This map
then,
is
which will get you more tablets,
unfreaking
which will get you
believable.
more and more and so on. So it's effectively a way to, if you're choosing breach is the thing I want to be doing, then that means that you can effectively self-sustain breach for as long as you want to, and sort of effectively turn your map into that. This is true for all the different mechanics that you can find on the Atlas. You know, you've got ones here for Ritual and Expedition and Delirium right there.
Crazy.
So, all right. So that's kind of important. So what we've covered here
Kinda.
actually is, okay, obviously, actually, one thing I, of course, failed to
That's
mention
what
is
an
that,
end game
there are
looks
uniques you
like.
get from that,
Yeah.
Pinnacle boss, of course, and so on. There are uniques you only get once you get the difficulty of that Pinnacle boss.
This has taken the mundane current map system in Path of Exile and just, you know, Jonathan spoke about, you know, exploration, and you know they want to encourage exploration, and the Atlas map, the world map, but more specifically the Atlas map, just like look at all these nodes. It just think about the exploration involved. This is a section of the map that's visually on the screen right now, right? And there's maybe what, 20 nodes, 25 nodes here. That's, and the map just keeps, right? Infinite. Just think about that. You know, this adds exploration. This adds the fact that you can target farm areas. Like it's, you know, you can go on and on and on and on and on. It just, you know, like the reaction to the reveal, it's just elevated the game to like a level we're going to start, you know, experiencing on December 6th. Like crazy.
To a certain level. So of course, once again, each endgame grind has to have a way to expand it, a way to make it more difficult, a way to specialize into it, a way to you know, get rewards that are specific to that. So next, let's talk about Expedition. So once again, we've done another sequel to a leak from POE1. This one's Expedition. We'll put a map in here, and just to make it a little bit easier, we're not going to actually do the rest of the map. We're just going to do the Expedition part of it. So what Expedition is effectively there are some Kalgurans, a group of people called Kalgurans, who are trying to dig up some old burial sites from their ancestors, and the goal is try to get Verisium relics that are left over from their past. If you've played POE1, the mechanic is quite similar. Effectively, what you're going to see is all of these markers here on the ground that are going to tell you whereabouts things are buried, and they're going to dig these things up using explosives. So effectively, you have to choose carefully where you're going to place the explosives in order to be able to get the most amount of bonus. There are also these things called remnants here that give you both bonuses and downsides for doing them. After you blow up the remnant, all the future monsters after that point will be stronger but more rewarding. So effectively, Octavian's going to place down some of these dynamite charges in a string, and then once he's done that...
Is that better? Lenendove, is that better?
And spawn things. Now he's choosing carefully which remnants he wants to use based on his build. He wouldn't want, for example, to make all the monsters immune to ice, because that would completely destroy him. Now there are lots of interesting things to find under the ground. There's like chests, and there can often be caverns and things like that. Once you get to the end game system, the pinnacle content for this league, there's going to be bosses and so on to find and things like that. Now the purpose of killing all these monsters primarily is to get these Verisium artifacts. You can see one there that says exotic coinage, but there's various other things like that on the ground. They also have these chests that drop items. There's a broken circle artifact, and oh look, they're unique, nice.
Ooh, nice.
You might as well identify it. I don't know which one that is. Let's have a look. This is just unscripted, by the way. Apron of Emerian. Bleeding you inflict is aggravated, which says that aggravated bleeding does 200% extra damage. Right, cool. So this is a bleed build type unique. Actually, whatever.
Did you see what he just did?
Yeah, once you've got these artifacts, then you can trade them with the Kalgurans for various different rewards. And once again, I'm not, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into too much into this, but probably one of the more interesting
What's up, Jason?
Is using crafting with a guy
How
called
are you, man?
We'll do that one here just so we can have a look. So ROG effectively has a shop where
David.
he'll sell you different items. You can re-roll it.
I have
using
not
currency
picked
as
a
well.
starting class
but
yet.
Once you find something that you want to kind of start with, which maybe you don't, there we go.
He dragged the tooltip,
What you can do is after you buy it, he'll offer to do various crafts. Okay, so this is an interesting one, Steve. Before you click anything, so what this is going to do is remove all prefix modifiers from the item. So if we like the prefixes, we probably want to skip this one and not do it. So let's skip this one. We got the same one again, which is very annoying. So, okay, so I guess we just have to do it then. Then re-roll suffix modifiers. Now, there's quite a lot of different modes here, but effectively you get various ability to modify the item before you go. I think this one is going to turn out.
You're going to roll
completely
Pathfinder
crap.
Lance?
Remove a single modifier at the lowest modifier level. Sure. I guess you can just take it. Anyway, that was a pretty crap example, but effectively this is a crafting system that allows you to make some pretty interesting items. Now, the other thing you're going to get from expeditions, other than the tablets that allow you to do more of them, is what else do we have here? Right, we'll just do the logbooks next. Okay, right, so we've got logbooks. So if you can get a logbook, it effectively allows you to do a super expedition, which is like an area that has only expedition. These logbooks have various mods and things as well, and then once you go there, then you can do an expedition that has a lot more.
You have the poison concoction cosmetic, so you makes sense, Lance. Makes
So
sense.
there's a lot more strategy in picking what type of things you want to find. Also, if you there's also things like bosses and uniques and like special underground areas and things like that to find. So there's just quite a lot of stuff hidden under the ground that you want to do. So at least find an underground area maybe. Yeah, is that one there? Okay, right.
$11. All right, let's see what kind of damage he does there.
And then when you detonate it, you're going to get the string of monsters, which he can try and keep up with. Although I hear the balance of this league is a bit wrong at the moment, so he might get one shot. So we'll see. As the remnants trigger, all of the monsters are going to get harder. So they might get pretty hard by the end, even if they're easy at the start.
That's the risk you take, Jonathan. Ooh. Oh, no worries, Landov. Thank you.
Right, so rather than keeping on killing those guys, we'll just quickly show you one of the things that he found. So there was a sub area down here where called Hidden Aquifer. There's quite a lot of variety of different things like this. I'm not sure what's in this one. But yeah, as I said, some of them contain bosses. They all contain interesting rewards that can be unique just to them. So yeah, there's quite a lot of things you're going to want to find.
This is the monk, David.
So like all of the end games, completing the most difficult content in this end game is going to allow you to get points to put in the ascendancy tree, make it more difficult, add more of them, that kind of thing. So yeah, let's go on to the next one.
They're going to do another expedition?
Oh, you might as well show the Atlas tree as well. So there's an example here which makes the number of explosives to 1, so that you only get one really large explosive rather than having to do a whole string of them in your maps. Maybe just a randomly interesting one.
Daily jackpots, a chance to win with every spin and a guaranteed winner by 11 p.m. every day.
All right, let's have a look at the next one, which is Ritual.
Nice. Here we go.
So Ritual is one of the other in-game grinds. When you enter a map with this mechanic, you're going to find these ritualistic circles through the area. Oh, there's one right there. Great. So when you kill monsters inside them, it effectively grants the monsters as tribute. And so when you summon the ritual, all the monsters that you killed within that ritual circle will spawn again. Why does that root spider have no eyes? Oh, it's breach as well. Okay, whatever. Let's not worry about that. Now, of course, because the league mechanics overlap, you would be able to kill breach monsters inside the circle and summon them again by the with the ritual, I believe. All right, so when you use the ritual, it effectively closes you off into a small area, and you have to fight all the monsters that you killed in that circle again. But the key thing is that there's it empowers them. There are multiple rituals through the area. So after each time you do this, you get a type of points called tribute that you can then spend on items. But if you're willing to risk it and make the rituals even more powerful, you can go to another ritual circle, kill more monsters inside of it, and then you'll be able to make the it'll summon both the ones from this circle and from the subsequent circle as well, making the rituals very, very tough by the time you get to the end. Oh, there's one last monster over there.
Dunzo.
All right. So then when you click on the ritual, it'll open the screen here, which allows you to spend tribute. Now, I don't think we want to spend too long on this, but effectively, this is the reward mechanic for ritual, and the more tribute you get, the more things you get. Jesus Christ, why are there more monsters? Oh, the map is beyond. Wait, is that because it was a corrupted map? Okay, right. So because this is a corrupted map, by the way, every time you kill monsters, it's got this mechanic called Beyond, where it leaves these little orbs behind, and then demons can get summoned from them when you kill them. That's just one of the random corruption outcomes you can get due to beast corruption in a map. Anyway, right, so this is tribute. You can buy items. None of these look particularly amazing, but do you have an omen in there? No. Okay, so in that case, we've got the end of the inventory. Right, so one of the things you're going to be looking for this are omens. So omens are a high-level crafting item that you can use to make more targeted changes to your items. So let's have a look at what they do. So here's an item here where we might like the prefixes, but thinks the suffixes are crap. Normally what you might want to do is either re-roll them with a chaos orb or maybe remove them with an orb of annulment. But you can't normally choose which mod to remove. This is an omen of dextral annulment. What that does is while this item is active in your inventory, your next orb of annulment will remove only suffix modifiers. So if you use that, and then use an orb of annulment, it'll only remove suffixes, not prefixes. And if you want to remove another suffix, he's got another one there. So this is a way of kind of doing meta crafting on items that allow you to make targeted changes. And with this, you can make some pretty broken stuff. There's another one here that says, while this item is active in your inventory, your next exalted orb will add 2 modifiers. That just effectively is a double exalt. This kind of thing is like a pretty simple one. But
yeah, the omens are meta crafting.
So that's just a sort of interesting way of crafting. It's one of the types of player power you can get only from this league. Of course, like other in-game mechanics, there's an uber boss for this as well, and killing that boss is going to get you points in the... well, we don't actually have to go there, but it will get you points for the Atlas tree for that league. So that's one of the other grinds as well. Right, next up we'll talk about Delirium. So in Delirium maps, your mind is going to be infected by a mysterious entity known as Tang Mizzou. You see these mirrors, and when you go through them, it kind of affects your mind and starts creating all these nightmare creatures, as well as affecting, kind of giving these strange things for other monsters as well.
A loyal fan isn't made overnight. Some might have a lucky jersey, and others a favorite way to watch. But what they all have is enthusiasm, edge of your seat.
So, what do you guys think of the Atlas map? Just out of curiosity, you guys cool with it? I think it's amazing.
So as you can see, it infects your mind, and you get this like mysterious mist that goes to the area. It both spawns new monsters as well as affecting the existing monsters
Mage and Koba.
in interesting ways.
A lot of people have commented on the brightness of it. Yes.
Now the main thing you're going to
should be darker and gloomier. Yeah.
Hopefully one drops, and we can have we can show you what they do. But if not, we've got one in the inventory.
Slightly concerned about needing to find every rare monster within the map. Draconic?
Now, if you're able to keep up with this mechanic, then you might be able to cover the entire map in it, in which case you can get some bonuses on map bosses as well.
Some people have said it looks like a Civilization game or similar. Right. Yeah, that's what I meant, Draconic. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be too difficult to find them, but who knows? We'll see.
All right, so there's some distilled emotions. We have distilled ire and distilled paranoia. Now, what this allows you to do is craft mods onto your amulet that grant you passives from your passive tree. So if you open up the crafting window for that, so effectively, if you put your amulet in there, then if you do a combination of 3 different distilled emotions, then it will allow you to get a bonus passive, what's it called? The notable from the passive.
Hey, Kill Molly!
Getting a little, it's going through a lot here.
You like the new
bonus
Atlas
on the
system?
So that one's quick recovery, 40% increased stun and block recovery, regenerate 10% of life.
You like to
over,
explore?
1 second.
Doubt I'll
stun.
give it get very far in
now,
it.
once again, this is a type of player power you only get from here, but you can also use them on maps as well. So if you put them on maps, then it allows you to add bonus mods to them to the map, in addition to the rare mods that you can normally get. So it's another form of juicing that you can do for in-game as well. Right, so that is
Juicing allowed.
Now, all of these different mechanics from the different in-game grinds kind of can be added with each other. If you open up the map, you can kind of start to add multiple mechanics overlapping with those towers. You can juice maps with, the thing like mechanic we just said. You're allocating points in the Atlas tree.
Yep.
Effectively, altogether, it allows you to really boost from the bottom of the Atlas to the top of the Atlas to really improve the content that you're doing to the point where it can get pretty crazy. But there is one more. In-game grind, which I'm not going to really talk too much about, but it relates to that that little object there. So effectively, this is where the Uber Pinnacle boss is, and we can travel to the entrance, but we won't be able to actually get in.
They're not going to go into it
yet. But effectively, there are
new Atlas looks great. Still unsure about the perma fail. I'll explain it in a second.
Kind of mysterious, and this is the hardest content in the game. So when you play the game, you'll have to try it out. But effectively, inside this area, you'll don't actually go in there. Inside there, you'll.
Can you imagine if he went in there?
Fight the Uber Pinnacle boss as well. And for the sort of hardest challenge in the game, that is something that I think players will really enjoy. So this is a sort of basic overview of how the end game works. There was quite a lot of information there, quite a lot of sequels to leaks from POE1 as well. But you can sort of see, I guess, the beginnings of a system that we're going to be expanding a lot over time. As we add more of these POE1 League sequels, and as we add more content that leagues to POE2, we've effectively got a lot of space here to be able to add as much to this in-game as possible. The Atlas tree, with all its different little, what you might call, the ascendancy kind of cluster type things for all the different content.
Just crazy.
All of these things, adding all of these things, we're going to add one every time we add a league to effectively allow you to scale this stuff. And so that means that there is a large capability to have a lot of content here. So that sort of shows you.
The game's going to double in early access, by the way.
I guess as a quick rundown of the content in early access. Even though it is early access, there's a lot of content here. There's a lot to do in in-game. There's the campaign plus the crawl version of the first half of the campaign plus the crawl.
Okay, so I want to address your question, Landon about the permafail and maps. So I'm sure everybody already knows this if you watch the live reveal, that if you fail a map, you can not run the map again. So one of these nodes. In essence, it gets blocked out, right? So you're exploring here, and one of the big things that people were really worried about when we heard that if you fail a map, you can't run it again, right? So the node is blocked. So, if you're making your way through here, okay, let me start over. If you're making your way through here and you go to this green one, let's just say, and you run the map and you die, this gets blocked off. Okay, so you can go here, right? And you can get around. Let's say your goal was to get over here, right? So people were like, wait a minute, if you fail enough of these nodes, you could, in essence, brick your map and block yourself from coming in that area, right? So there is a reset. You can reset. It was confirmed yesterday, last night during the interview. Jonathan did an interview with DM and Ghazi. And oh my God, I forgot to mention, guys, if you don't know, Try is interviewing Jonathan, I believe, tomorrow night. So make sure you watch his. Actually, if you're going to be on my stream, we'll be watching it, but you can go on his stream as well and watch it. He's interviewing Jonathan tomorrow night. But it was revealed in that interview last night that there is a mechanism. There's going to be a mechanism in the game that you can reset your Atlas map, and it will regenerate a new Atlas map. It will not be like the one you bricked. It will be completely new. So there is a safety net if you brick your Atlas map. So Lenendov, don't worry about it. You're okay. But there are going to be ways to get around maps that you can no longer run because you failed. Like, as you can see here, just in this little area, you know, there's multiple ways of getting around to this point. It's not a straight line. Of course, there is a straight line, but there's other ways to get there, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but just don't fail 7 maps in the same area. But there is a safety net. Okay, what else did I want to do? Oh God, where was that interview that I wanted to look at? I wanted to look at... Tavern Talk. I think it's called Tavern Talk, right? Yeah. One day ago. Here it is.
Hey kids, what do you call the NordVPN Black Friday deal? The Block
This
Friday
is also
deal.
was a really good interview. Ghazi, let's see. Yeah, here we go.
Pack keys can be gifted to PS5 players. Okay, so this is already answered on the website itself. Wherever you buy the keys, what platform you buy it on is what the platform is for. So if you buy them on PC, you can give them to other PC people.
But I think we're doing pretty well. So what we really expected, but certainly there seems to be a lot of hype.
He was blown away by the
it's
response
a bit
they
scary,
got
but I think
from.
we're doing pretty well.
Oh, for sure. Big congratulations on the reveal. It was fantastic. Like the intro scene, I think it blew everybody away. Absolutely astonishing.
Yeah.
I mean, DM, what do you think about the reveal? Like, I'm rating it at a 12 out of 10 so far. It's been the best one yet.
Oh, 15 out of 10.
I mean, obviously everyone liked it. I would say that kind of expected it to be good because I was able to get the early sneak peek and, you know, see it in LA earlier on. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be pretty well received. One of my questions I did have for you to go right into.
Hey, NYC.
Questions, and then we're gonna,
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Immediately go into like more specific questions, and these are questions mostly just pulled from the community that they really want the answers to. But one of the general questions that I had for you was: it seems like there's been more and more an emphasis on exploration and world building. In Path of Exile 2, you know, you saw things like the skulls on the maps is one such example you've used for this before. So I was kind of hoping you could walk us through the process that happened when you guys started to realize we really want to have more of a focal point on exploration in the game.
So, I mean, to start with the story stuff like that, I mean, like, you know, we really want to make sure that we're doing better than what we had in POE1 with regard to story. Like, a lot of people get through POE1 and they never even realize what it is, like, what the story even was. But as for exploration as well, I mean, like, there's just, you really want to have that fantasy of, like, you know, well, I mean, you're playing a fantasy game, right? Like, you just like, and I think exploration is a huge part of that. So there was a thing that happened, you know, in terms of like the, you know, the icons on the map and everything like that. There was kind of a moment when we realized
What
that,
press release, NYC?
People actually didn't realize how much content there was in the game. Like there was a situation where, like, you know, people would like walk past things, they wouldn't know that maps contain stuff. So we're like, okay, you know, when people are dying to bosses all the time, there is stuff out there for them to find. They're just not actually finding it. They don't know that it's there. So the icon on the map thing was just like a really good step towards actually making it so that you realize, oh, you know what, this is actually a game where if I explore, I will be rewarded. And there's been quite a lot of other things like that we've done as well. Like, we've tweaked the random level generator. We've done like like to make it so that you've got things like where when you come to dead ends, we try to make sure that there's stuff in dead ends for you to find.
I love that.
And of course, there's this like the particular encounters that we have, like like every area we try to have like 2. In some cases, there might even be 3, like sort of just like handmade like little things you can find. And we're actually keen to expand on that as well. So one of the things that I'm keen to do is to have a larger pool of these kinds of things in the game than what you get the first time you go through an area, and they can be random. And then we could even consider having it so that when we do the when we go between leagues, the set of them that gets picked for each area could be randomly selected from those. Like, we don't have that at the moment, but it's like something that I'm very keen to do, because I think that obviously replayability, if it's an action RPG, it's like a huge thing. By having more of these things, you just want, so like every time you go through the campaign, you just get a feeling of like, oh, there's stuff here I haven't noticed before, there's stuff there I haven't like just little things. And I think those little things really contribute. And we even started doing that a little bit with POE1. Once we sort of realized we wanted to do this stuff, even with POE1, we started saying, okay, every league, when we put one out, we want to have like 20, 30 just like tiny changes to the campaign that we can do, just so that next time you go through it, you just sort of feel like, hey, like here's just something random that I never noticed before. And I think that that's like, it's funny because it's not really a headline feature. Like when we're announcing the a POE1 league, it's not like saying, oh, here's like a bunch of these little things. Like, it doesn't really get anyone very excited. But I think that when you actually play through it, there's just that feeling of like, oh man, I never saw that before, and it just kind of gives you just a better experience. So I think that feeling of just like just finding random stuff is really important, and we want to do that as much as we can.
I totally agree with what he said. NYC, we literally just watched Open World Games video. We just spent the last hour and change watching that whole video here.
That's really funny that you mentioned that, because like I don't know how many times I've gone through the campaign. I played the game for 10.5 years, and every time I see something new, I'm like, how have I missed this after a decade of playing this game? Because it's not in the patch notes. It's always so surprising.
Yeah.
Guys, you want to go with the...
Yeah, I think we just jump into it. We've made a list here to make sure it's structured, because we have a tendency of asking repeat questions in the past, and we're trying to make sure that's not happening this time. So the next question we have, we're going to jump into, is that the POE2 is focused a lot on new player experience, eliminating a lot of requirements for going to third-party tools or third-party sites. And a commonly asked question is that if we're going to be...
You love the monk now? Yeah, I look good.
Monsters and their abilities in-game, sort of like a Necronomicon or Wiki in-game. Can we expect to see this?
This is something that I'd be super keen to do, especially because of...
Actually, guys, I'm just going to very quickly go top up my coffee. I'll be right back. I'll just let the video play. Hopefully there's no friggin' ads that come. I'll be right back. 2 minutes.
The fact that some of the monster models are so awesome. You don't really get to appreciate them from game camera perspective. Like, so like every weekend, my friends come over, and I like to show them like, hey, here's what we've been doing on POE2 recently. But the thing is, I've got the tools. I can like open up what's called the asset viewer and like, hey, look at this cool monster, and like show them close up and like, hey, look at. And there's also the funny things, like the animators make all these idle animations for the monsters that you basically never see, like with a bunch of character to them and stuff like that are really awesome, and the players never see them because obviously you never see a monster not attacking you. So like there's all sort of stuff. So one day, and we don't have this in the game right now, but one day I am very keen to make an actual sort of bestiary, of like, here's all the monsters in the game, but like, we can actually see the model and like appreciate it a little bit. And then obviously when you do that, then that would be a great opportunity to be able to show like, all, various abilities and things like that. It would be sort of handy, I think, for people who are wanting to play specters and, to be able to have a big list of all that stuff. So I think that'll be a really cool thing to do one day. But yeah, we don't have it at the moment. I just think it'll be really awesome to kind of show off the work of the artists who have made all these awesome monsters. And like, yeah, some of them are really kind of gruesome. Like there's this random guy, just to pick a random example, called a pale fishman, and it's like this tiny little thing on screen that you barely even see. But if you like zoom into the model, it's like this crazy like warped thing between a human and a one of those anglerfish with the like dangling light thing on it. And like when you look at it real close, you can see there's like a sort of screaming person kind of under there that like there's a mouth, and like the idle animation like is like kind of crazy with like all this like, yeah, like there's just stuff like that in there that it's like, like you really don't appreciate that when you just like blast past it and kill it in like half a second because it's just some random small monster. So yeah, it'd be cool for people to see that stuff.
What was the name of that? Because we can get the idle animation when we race it as a specter. What was the name of it?
That's true. It was called a pale fish one. I actually don't even know if it's in the early access because I think it might be an Act 4 monster. Yeah, in fact, and the other thing as well is when I give names like these are like internal code names. That's like the name of the folder that someone put it in, rather than like the actual like lore name in the game. So I don't know if it'll even be called that in the final version, but yeah, it's just it's pretty interesting to see some of that stuff.
I'll see if I can
and
find
speaking,
it.
Speaking of animations, I want to go off script here from our list already and ask you about the cinematic. Was something that I wanted to make sure I ask you about because it's kind of the first, full like major cinematic that has really been revealed so far. So, was it difficult doing your first cinematic, and did you guys get the result and the response you were really hoping for?
Absolutely. So yes, it was definitely very hard. I mean, obviously we've never done anything like that before. Like I sort of had to. I mean, I wrote it myself, and there was a New Zealand company who we commissioned to kind of to work on it. They've done obviously some cool stuff before, but I don't think they'd ever done like a thing that's this long, like on the sort of scale, I guess. That was certainly, like I mean, they did a really good job, right? Like it's really awesome. But yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of like. I was really concerned, right? Because obviously the comparison is to like Blizzard and all the crazy cinematics like that. And to be honest, like the quality of the animation is not what Blizzard does, right? Like, I mean, they, like we do a lot of things in order to make it so that like it is like, I want the content to be really awesome, but it's like in terms of just the raw, like, like amount of millions of dollars that they probably spend on their cinematics, right? Like we're not at that level. We're not there. But I was really hoping that you could get a feeling of like the world and the kind of, I want to make sure that people understand right from the word go that like there is a brutality here. And like we're not sort of pulling any punches when it comes to the kind of things you can expect in the game. So that was kind of what I was going for. The thing that I actually based it on is I was thinking a lot about the Riddick movies.
Yes.
You kind of got the thing of the classic like a team of guys going all over
the hell happened there?
And then they get picked off one by one.
No, Lick Me. Obviously, when you're playing by yourself, you're not going to be able to see anybody in the open world. You're going to be in town. That's different, like it is right now in Path of Exile. You'll be able to see other players, but when you're in the open world and you're playing solo, you're not going to see anybody. Obviously, if you're playing in a group, you will. If you're playing couch co-op, you definitely will. But no, and I know you keep bringing up like Diablo 4, no. Not in that aspect. And
that's
welcome,
kind of
by the way.
Imagining, I was like, okay, how are we going to do this? And so that's kind of what I was thinking about as we were writing it.
I love that Riddick series. That was the first movie I introduced
Check.
my fiance to when we first met.
I'm not
right.
not playing core punk. No.
And also it also has that sort of idea of the flip of like you've got the team you're following are like the bad guys, but you kind of think of them as like but they're kind of yet the main protagonists, and it's like you get that flip at the end where you realize that the bad guy hunting them all is actually the good guy. So I was pretty happy with that one as well.
Pretty well done. Pretty well done.
It was fantastic.
That was a lot of
You need something to do for 2 weeks. I hear you.
Moving on to the
11
next
days.
question.
It's less than
For
2 weeks.
clarification, this is a kind of a big one. A couple mini questions in it. So for clarification, can you explain how deaths in map work? Because there's been some confusion.
Any word on experience death penalty? It actually gets a little bit discussed in this interview. There is going to be a death penalty. They want to, John, and you'll hear it in this interview.
Thanks for the follow.
Thank you for the follow, Lance Tim. Thank you. Jonathan actually does talk a little bit about this later on in this interview, that especially with the 90 to 100, they want that to mean something. So there are going to be, just like in Path of Exile, a death costs experience. So they want it to mean something.
On why 6 portals, if you die you can't go back in, as well as experience penalty still being a thing. So we'll start with those two.
Yeah, so basically when you die in a map, you can't resurrect.
Nothing on PvP, like me. I've never heard. I haven't heard anything on PvP.
We discussed this quite a lot, right? Because we were like, we've got 6 portals, we could have it, so that you can revive 6 times like you did in POE1. But the thing we were really worried about is just compromising the combat. Like, we just really don't want to make it so that you just you know, effectively, like, I mean, obviously there's a limited level of cheese, but it's still cheese on the boss as far as we were concerned. So the reason for 6 portals is it's still important that you're able to pull out 6 inventories worth of items from a map if you're by yourself, you know, like you still want to be able to do that. And yet we also don't want to make it just one portal with unlimited uses, because once again, that limitation on like the amount of stuff you can pull out of a map, I think, is also kind of one of those things that's important. And there's also a slightly more mundane reason, which like seems a bit silly, but you know, all the map devices that we've already sold, those are microtransactions that we need to support.
They all have 6 portals,
and all of those have 6 portals. We can't really change that, so you know, that's kind of just like one of those things that we just kind of have to maintain backwards compatibility for that reason. So yeah, there was a lot of discussion around this though, but at the end of the day, the main thing that won out as far as is we just don't want to compromise the combat. We want to make sure that if you're going to kill a boss, it has to be like one life. You have to survive it. You actually have to properly kill it. But of course, we can make those encounters harder because of the fact we don't have a map boss in every area. So we get to ideally have that still being fine.
What about experience penalty when dying? Is that still going to be a thing with this?
There you go. Here we go.
That's actually a very good question. So we removed it from the campaign at the point where we made it so that we added checkpoints and everything. And then at the time, we were like, oh, but in maps you get 6 portals, so therefore we still don't have it. Now, it's still there right now, but it's not something I've like thought about honestly for like a little while now. So it's probably good that I have another conversation with Mark about it just to see whether we still need it. The reason why I think I would still like it is because it's not really at the beginning of maps, but as you get towards the race towards 100, having death like set you back. So that you have to actually build somewhat defensively when you're like racing for 100, I think is kind of important. So the experience penalty is really serving a really important role there. But I suppose the question is like it may not be as necessary when you're talking early maps, right? Like it's really that from like 90 to 100 where it kind of starts to matter that the death penalty is there as a thing. So we could theoretically think about like, I mean, basically what I'm saying with that is like we could fiddle around with the equation for it a little bit, but yeah, the purpose of it really is to make sure that as you're coming towards the end, as you're getting to level 100, that like a mistake actually costs you something rather than just being like a nothing in the road. In order for that race to 100 to actually be meaningful, because like if you can just grind your face into the wall and still not losing experience and just like die, it's like you get to 100 but you died like 2,000 times. It's like, well, did you really achieve the same thing as the guy who didn't die at all? So
they're built different. Anyway, by the way, for those of you guys that don't know, this interview with Jonathan from DM and Gazzy this is from last night. Okay, so this is very current.
That's a fair answer. The follow-up question.
And shameless plug, I did a summary video of this. It's on my YouTube channel. Shameless plug.
To this little chunk we got here is loot. And what happens when you're going in a party play in maps, and what happens to the loot there in the loot split between the parties, as well as what happens if X player dies? What is the loot to that player?
All right, so okay, a few things about this. So number one, we have changed how the loot scaling works for party members, and what we've actually tried to do is be a lot more intelligent with regard to what types of items do you want to see more of, and what types of items don't matter about having more of. So an example of this is like, if you're talking about currency, right? Obviously you want double the amount of currency. We've got 2 players because all players want to take currency. But this is also true for things like rings and amulets, because rings and amulets aren't kind of like specific to any one like person, right? Like I mean, obviously the mods can make them that way, but everyone wants a ring, everyone wants an amulet if one drops. So effectively, we also do plus 100% for things like that as well. But if you're talking about armors, well, there are 6 different armor types, and so if you look on average, you only need to increase the number of armors by 50% in order to be able to. Wait, is it even 50%? It might be. Okay, I might be doing the math wrong here, but
it's doing mental
there's an
math.
amount of armor increase that you need.
We've all been there, Jonathan. We've all been there.
Everyone's still getting the stuff they want because certain players only want certain armor parts of the pie, right, due to the strength, dex, int thing. And for weapon types, there's even more weapon types. So the chance that 2 players are actually using the same weapon type is generally much lower. So effectively what that means is that we can not increase weapons by the same amount that we increase other stuff. So what that means is that when you, the sum total of all of that means that the stuff on the ground from each player increases by some number like 28% if you actually look at it in raw drops. But the actual what makes up that 28% is like way more of the stuff you actually want and not as much of the garbage that you don't want, in order to make it so that you don't get the crazy spam on the ground with party play that you previously might have gotten. So I think that system works very well in terms of just making it so that you get the right items. And I guess it just goes to the general philosophy that we have of we're trying to not drop as many things, but make sure the things we do drop are more important and better as you go up. So that's kind of like the as I said, just part of that philosophy there. I feel like there was another part of the question that I've forgotten now, so maybe you can remind me what it was.
The last part there's two more, but one of them was, let's say you're 2 players playing and 1 player dies. What happens to the loot on the ground that belongs to that player, so to say?
So I think that we usually use temporary. I think temporary allocation is still. I'm pretty sure the rules for this are basically the same as what they were in POE 1, at least at the moment. So basically, if you've got temporary allocation on, then the allocation will disappear, and then the loot will just become allocated to to be free for all once the timer expires. And if it's permanent allocation, then obviously it stays like that. Although we definitely should make it free for all once you die, even if it's permanent, I assume.
That's how it is in
I don't know if
POE1.
we've actually done that. Oh, it does work that way? In that case, it'll just work then. So it's just the same as in POE 1 in that regard. That should be fine. Yeah, I mean, effectively like that. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's like changed a huge amount in that particular regard. So actually, what was the last part there?
Last one has to do with trials. Now, we've only seen Sanctum and Ultimatum version, or the 2.0 version of it. So the real question is two ones. One is the Sanctum no-hit run, and the questions are, what happens if 1 player dies, if 2 players goes in, and the other one is the reward system there as well, I guess.
Okay, so this is one of these tricky technical questions that Mark would probably be better at answering because he knows the exact details. So let me think about that. I don't know that I've even had a discussion about what happens to the rewards in Sanctum. Now, generally speaking, of course, when we're doing things like this, when you're paying party play with a thing like Sanctum, the map, to be technical, the map owner, but effectively the person who paid the cost, the person who put the key in, they're the person who kind of gets like the progress. So they usually get to be the one who decides what actions to take and what rooms to go to. I believe though that if you want to go through and ascend, that you can both do the ascendancy. So that means if you want to do like the ascension in a party, then that's absolutely fine. You get the reward there. But I believe that the items that come from like key, the chests and stuff like that, I believe that they belong to the person who paid the cost of the coin that they used to enter. Is my understanding of that. I could be wrong about this, but I think that's correct. So yeah, there's a few. I'm sorry about this. I don't have like completely clear information about some of that stuff, but that's one of those things that Mark tends to be often addressing as far as working up those things. Mark really is like so. One thing I should mention is that Mark plays like. I could be wrong about this, but I think like 90% of the time when he's playtesting multiplayer, so he's the one who really cares about getting all that multiplayer stuff exactly right. Whereas when I'm playing, I'm like a solo player all the way, right? Like for whatever reason, I'm just like a solo player. So ideally with the both of us paying attention here, we should make sure that things
Get
are
everything.
both solo and multiplayer. But yeah, he's got a bunch of designers he likes to play with. Like the design team effectively. Like he plays multiplayer with the design team all the time. So he's the one who usually sorts out these like specific little multiplayer details.
All right.
So, since we're talking about loot, there is one question that people had related to loot due to some early access footage we've seen where there's like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 advanced gear, etc. So I was hoping you could break down what that's referencing.
Yeah, so effectively, when you get magic find gear, so like increased chance of rarity, we wanted to try and make it so that the gear that you get from that is better, and not just in the way of just getting like more rares. I mean, it does do that as well. Don't get me wrong; like you're still getting more rares, more uniques, and so on. But
I love this explanation.
You can scale rarity by a huge amount, not necessarily in a character, but also because when you've got a monster that you've juiced with various map mechanics, all of that stuff is adding rarity and not quantity. So effectively, you need to make sure that rarity is something that that really increases the power. So the way we do that is there's 5, and I don't know whether Rishi will be unhappy about me spoiling the exact inner workings of this, but there are 5 tiers to start with that you don't see, that you can't see, that change anything, because those don't change anything about unidentified items, but they do change the percentage chances that you get certain things. So they, for example, you're getting chances to upgrade currency to higher types of currency. You're getting like the chances of not not spawning items with base types that are lower level than what you would need. So effectively sort of clamping the base types that you're going to get into like a smaller range at the top, and like these kind of things, while also increasing like magic and rare and uniques and stuff like that. It also increases the like it starts to open up like those tiers start to open up like
Hey,
what
Mokesh.
types of uniques can go into the pool.
No, I'm
and
not.
To be clear here, there's always a chance that you can upgrade through these tiers regardless of how much Magic Find you have, right? You don't need Magic Find to get this. It's just that Magic Find is effectively increasing the chance that you upgrade through them. And in total, there's actually 10 tiers overall. But at tier 5, it starts to modify the properties of unidentified items, and that's why we have to start marking the rares as being like, and so that's when, so when it says T2, that actually means that's like T5 internally of what it's rolled, and then so the tiers going up from there, each of them say, you know, T2, T3, T4, T5, and what the reason why we have to say that is because when this item dropped, we clamped the mods that it can get to be in the upper tiers, and the higher tier you get, the higher they can go. So if you get a T5 rare, the mods that it can have are from a very, very tiny portion of them, right at the top of all the tiers of those mods. So you know that the rolls you're going to be seeing, like the life you're going to get on the damage you're going to get on this kind of thing, are going to be top notch when you see that. So effectively, and the reason why I think that's important to show is because you kind of want people to feel like, okay, because the number of items that drop aren't really increasing, you need a way to see on the screen when something drops, like how valuable is the thing that I just saw. And so showing those tiers on the rares also really has that effect of like, okay, like if you see like, you know, 5 or 6 T5 rares drop, you know you got a really good hit, whereas if you see a bunch of like T2s, you know you didn't get such a good one. So that's kind of important, I think, just to get that feeling of being important. It's actually really interesting because we've been fighting so much this thing of like the way that you made, like a way you can make drops in an action RPG feel good is just by dropping tons of crap on the ground. But the problem is that like it really is kind of an annoying element, because like while it can feel good, it's like it's just people want the.
I wonder what he was talking about.
All that stuff, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, that's great and everything, and we'll support that, and that's fine. But like, ideally, we can actually make it so that you don't have to worry about it in the first place. And so you need to find a way to give people the hit of dopamine without having to just do that by like literally covering the screen. I mean, there's still room for like dropping a lot of stuff, right? I mean, like we want to make sure bosses feel like, you know, there's a good list of stuff there. But it's like ideally you get that by the value of the items, like you know that the value of that stuff is really good. And I suppose on some level, item filters are even sort of achieving that anyway, because if you're using a filter to get, like, you're not seeing very much anyway, so it really is all about the value. So it's not like it's impossible. We just need to make sure that the game is doing that as a matter of course, rather than filters.
Oh,
sorry, did that?
Thought it was me.
Oh, you're good. We only lost you the last half second there.
Okay,
but,
cool.
So since you bring up the concept of loot filters, this was a question we were going to ask later, so I might as well bring it up now. Is that like official confirmation loot filters? Sounds like art support.
Yeah, so they're supported in exactly the same way they were in POE1. There's no reason for us to drop support for something like that. You know, if you want to use them, you can. And I suspect what the main reason people will use them for in POE2 is not so much filtering things away, but more highlighting things that are valuable that you might not otherwise recognize, you know, because like there might be higher base types or things like that. Like a lot of people have filters that like, highlight certain things that might be good for various reasons. So, you know, things that have, like for example, people might like want to be doing things like, you know, like I know that this, you know, like things like, you know, items having sockets and stuff, maybe you want to change the text color when that happens or things like that. Like there are icons and stuff for that stuff there, but we try to keep things like relatively visually clean. And also we don't want to try to make too many value judgments for the player about what is important or not. So therefore we try to like not do too much of that stuff, but obviously players, you know, come up with their own schemes for what they think is important. So then I suspect they'll use loot filters mostly for the ability to change how loot is rendered as opposed to filtering it out.
I gotta say, this isn't so much a question as much as a comment for me personally, but I really appreciate the approach of something you said there, which is allowing the player to determine what's important. I find that to be like a very appealing sentiment. So when I hear that, it's kind of the reason I've been falling in love with the POE game lately. But anyway, on to the next question here. So this one is going to be an obvious one. If I didn't ask it, everyone would be mad. So there's 6 classes that are coming to early access. Some of them have already been showcased.
Good question, because you got a good answer.
And the Huntress. So I think people are curious about, are they coming soon? What's going on with these classes?
Yeah, so they'll definitely be coming relatively soon. I'm not going to promise a date, but certainly the next two classes you see will be those two, like in terms of in early access. We just at some point, look, we really wanted to launch with those two classes. We expected that we would be launching into early access with those two classes, but at some point it was just like, you know, we and I think I've even said this before, but we really underestimated what it takes to finish a class. I think, it takes a lot. You know, it's because and the thing is, it's like you make a bunch of skills and you're like, oh yeah, you know, we've made the skills, that's the class, right? But in PoE it really isn't, because you know, you need to make sure they can all be supported well. You need to make sure there's uniques that support it, there's passive tree stuff that supports it. It's like a whole thing of like getting all that stuff into a good state. It's like plus also the skills, plus also thinking about all the stuff that can happen with other classes and like how does it tie in with all the mechanics. Like it's just a Goliath task. So I think the Huntress and the Druid are not far away. The Druid, we still have one form that we still need to get finished. There's like there's still some more skill work to do there. The Huntress, I think we mostly have like working prototypes that we're happy with for most of the skills, but like there's still a little bit more to do. But yeah, it's just all that other sort of finishing work around like tying it into all the other systems, making sure everything's good, that we need to get done. And you know, it won't take us too long, but you know, at some point we just had to say like, hey, you know, can we really do this for early access with all the other stuff that we're doing? And we just felt like we couldn't. So, you know, we decided to cut for now, get to it later. And, you know, I mean, we make these kinds of decisions all the time. There's like a ton of content that's like, you know, we're trying to get it in. We try as hard as we can. And then we're like, oh, you know what? We just couldn't get it in. But I think, you know, that's just game development, right? But the nice thing is it's all sitting there, right? We don't throw anything away. We've got it all there waiting in the wings, which means that there'll be a bunch of content we'll be able to introduce really quickly.
When you say
Speaking of
one forum,
sorry, go on.
So just to confirm, guys, Druid and Huntress are going to be the next two classes introduced in early access. It's not going to be there on December 6th. Jonathan wouldn't confirm a date, but Druid and the Huntress are the next two going to be introduced in early access. So we're going to go from 6 to 8, and Druid and Huntress, the next two, what do they call it? In the batter's box. So for those of you, I know Druid is pretty popular build, a pretty popular class. So you're going to, sounds like you're going to get your hands on it relatively soon after December 6th. So how early, we don't know, but just Huntress and Druid, next two classes in early access.
yeah, like when you say one forum, could you like give us a number? How many forums are we talking about?
Mukesh.
So there's three.
The Mookie Bear.
Forms for the Druid, but
So,
there's a couple of
yeah.
other like random shapeshifts around, like the kind of. I mean, you actually saw one of them, right? There's the shapeshift on the Ascendancy, the demon form. So there's a few other things, bits and pieces like that around the place. But yeah, the Druid sort of has three primary forms, and that's because we want to try and like the other classes, we want to make sure that there's combos between the forms as well. Like there aren't just, it's not just like a reskin melee, right? Like each of the forms kind of has like skills that have like things, and we want to make sure there's mechanics between them that they can kind of, you know, you get the cross-class kind of, even within the archetypes of the class, synergy like that. So yeah, the one that no, maybe I'm not going to spoil it. Actually, yeah, I'm not going to say anything about it.
He almost went into
Go
it.
ahead, go ahead.
No.
You're more than welcome to.
So this is probably a good time to ask this thing, because you're talking about you know, the additional classes here. Does that mean we can basically expect changes to the passive skill tree? Because obviously there's the 6 starting nodes now, so when you add the other classes, there's going to be new branches, I'm assuming, added for each one of these classes at this point, or were they going to double down on previous ones?
So yeah, well, look, I'm sure the passive tree will receive massive renovations all through early access. Like, I just have no doubt of that. It's every time we change anything, a huge passive tree changes are a result, and it's taken a long time to iterate to even the point we are now, and I'm just sure there'll be more. And like the thing is until you really play it like properly, you just don't even know what's missing. You know, actually one other thing I might mention, just because I don't know if it's like hugely well known, but the starting area of the tree for each class actually changes. There's actually 3 variants of the starting part of each tree for each class. So effectively,
yeah, we talked about this earlier.
Playing the Witch and the Sorceress. So effectively, if you're a witch, you get one variant of the starting area, and if you're a sorceress, you get another variant. And then if you're neither of those 2 classes, then you get there's a 3rd variant that can go there, so that all the other classes, when they go there, they get slightly different stats again. The reason for that is because the initial reason we did the witch sorceress thing is because there's this problem that you have with where players, when they see a node, that's got multiple things on it.
Oh,
and one of
really,
the things does
Majinkova?
not affect them. People just really don't want
There
to
is some
like
good,
that, even if
really
the
good
values are
information
the
that's
same
come out
for
of
the
this
values we've
video.
gotten. So when we first did this, when we had one variant for everyone, the witch
Oh,
sorceress
yeah.
nodes were like plus 8% or whatever minion and spell damage, right? And we found that sorceresses, even though a sorceress would would otherwise get just 8% spell damage, sorceresses would just not take that because it's got this minion thing on it, and they don't want that. So by having the trees be separate, it just sort of prevents that problem immediately. And the other thing it kind of also was just like, when we realized that we could swap those two out, we're like, well, hang on, we might as well have a third variant as well for other players, because that will mean that there are some times when we have like balance things that are a bit annoying, where like we can't make a node for a class in the starting area as good as we want, because that would mean that other classes would all be incentivized to go there and take it, because it's like too powerful, if you know what I mean. So effectively with that, we can like balance the because it's relatively close to get to the adjacent classes area. So effectively you can sort of just balance that so that it like kind of works a little bit better. So there's not going to be anything in the starting areas that you like don't like stats you just can't otherwise get, right? It's not going to be like that, but it's just more about like tweaking numbers and a few cases like the sorceress and witch where we just have to make sure that, you know, for new player clarity, we can make sure that it's like just the stuff they're going to want and not the stuff for the other class. But as you get out of that,
Brilliant.
it'll become the same. But yeah, as I said, we'll be making a lot more changes.
Brilliant. So just quickly, we spoke about this earlier, so if you were here, sorry for the repeat, but the passive skill tree, there's 6 starting points, 12 classes, so 2 classes will start at the same starting point. 2 times 6, 12. So what Jonathan was just saying is, then he said this sorceress and the witch, same starting point. There's going to be, so the beginning nodes, that section, there's going to be 3 variants to it. So the sorceress variant, the witch variant, and the third variant, which other classes that maybe see nodes there that are appealing and they want to make their way over there, they can. So each beginning area in the 6 starting points and the passive skill tree are going to have 3 versions, 3 variants to it. Like, unbelievable, the detail in this game, just crazy good.
As we go through too.
All right.
That was a very in-depth answer there. I actually didn't know about the changing of the starts. That's that's an interesting tidbit there. Okay, so you did mention, and you know I gotta ask, because you said classes and content coming to the game. I am a notable Blight enjoyer.
Yep.
So you know, I'm gonna ask. Can we hope? Can you tease me with anything? Give me some copium that
Copium,
maybe Blight can come to Path of Exile too at some point.
Well, I will say this. Blight is a relatively easy league to add compared to some others. So when we're looking at leagues of like, here are some leagues that we can put in like relatively easily, that is one of the ones that would be relatively simple for us to do. Obviously, one of the reward system it previously had has now been moved to a different thing, which means that Blight will need a new reward system, and we've got ideas for what we can do about that. But we've got monsters we can use for it. We've actually got a bunch of environment art from Act 5 that would suit Blight perfectly well. I'm not sure if have we shown any of that? No, I don't think we have. All right, yeah. Well, anyway, there's some stuff that we can use very easily. So it's the kind of thing that we could do relatively easily when we're looking to add new leagues to the game.
So I'm just hearing Blight login. That's what I'm hearing when you're saying. Okay, well that's good. That's good news. I'll pass it off to Gazi because I've been asking a bunch of questions related to stuff I just personally wanted to know.
Oh, that's fine. Later on in this podcast, we're gonna hit the minion rant section, so don't worry about it. But we can start with a classic simple answer question, and it is how many ascendancy points are we going to get in total?
Yeah, so same as POE 1, it's 8 points. So effectively, you've got the last 3 you can get throughout campaign, 3 sets of 2, I should say. So 6 points throughout campaign, and then the last one you have to be in game to be able to get.
All right. The other question we have here is POE2 looks like there's a significant amount of ways to increase power on maps. How does the juicing compare to POE?
You guys got that right? 8 ascendancy points in total, 6 in the campaign, 2 at the end game.
1 for endgame mapping. Now we saw a lot of it in the reveal, but could you elaborate on it?
Well, so first things first, we definitely want to make sure that juicing is still a thing, right? Like before we did our whole endgame push, I think that in recent times, I think that would have been a big problem that we would have had, where there wasn't enough ways to juice maps. But I don't know that you'll be able to get to quite the level that you can get in POE1. Certainly, we want to make sure that it's big though, and like it's honestly. It's a little bit hard to say because, you know, the way that this can go down, I mean, look, we think we can know, like, all the things, but you never really quite know exactly how it goes until you get, like, masses of players, because trade is a huge part of the economy for how juicing works. Like, it's like, okay, so we've shown people how you can overlap tablets and towers and all these sorts of things like that and, like, get all these packs. But the question is the sustainability in a trade league such that you can, like, do all of the juicing mechanics that POE2 has to offer at the same time continuously? And I don't actually quite know the answer to that because, as I said, it's really a trade economy thing that you need to be able to say what they can do. And the juice is substantial if you can get everything all at the same time. The question is, can you do that every map or can you do that only some of the time? And I honestly can't say until the trade sort of starts to happen. I think it's going to come down a lot to just play and for us to just find out, like, you know, like once we hit that trade economy, we actually start playing. What does it feel like? Is it working well? But the thing is, we still want you to feel powerful, and part of the feeling of power actually is pack size, right? Like you need to have enough pack size so that, because when you've got a bunch of AoE abilities, obviously the more things they hit, the more damage you're effectively doing overall. So like the more pack size really is like a way to make a player feel powerful, and so that's why we need to have ways of juicing pack size, and we've got ways of juicing pack size in the game. But then we also have to be a little bit careful because that is what can lead to things getting completely out of control and then just can't understand what's going on in the combat and things just completely fall apart. So as I said, we have to be careful, but I think it is still substantial. Like you still need to feel like a god. So I think the juice will be high, but I do believe it should be lower than POE1 at least by a little bit.
That's fair. On the topic of power and juicing things up, something that we've seen in many games throughout the years is how ARPG games, they start off kind of slow and more of a strategic gameplay approach, and then the best patches comes through, the game evolves, the meta of power creeping and speed clearing just goes to crazy numbers, and then everyone's upset when they're then toned down or the number squish is happening. So I guess the follow-up question would be, what are the plans? Because I'm very confident there are plans to manage severe increase in power creep moving forward, so you don't end up in that category where you're one-shotting the entire screen.
I think that we just have to be careful, and honestly, I would say that in POE1 we've shown that we can. I mean, look, POE1 obviously did get pretty crazy, but at the same time, like we had a lot of years, where things kind of weren't like that, and I think that effectively, I believe we can still maintain that. Our numbers don't scale as fast as some games do, and they don't go quite as exponential, which means that we're not going to have to be worrying about trillions of damage or anything like that. And like I mean, it can be. So I don't think we're going to have to ever do a number squish or anything like that. Like we've never really felt like the need to worry about that. I mean, it's just a matter of keeping on top of it. And there are certain people in the company who just, are just very careful about stuff. So I mentioned Rishi a couple of times. Like, he's kind of the one who does most of the work for the item system and so on. So he is definitely a force of conservativeness when it comes to like making sure that things don't go crazy, and so that's really good to have because it means that like me and Mark are often the ones being like, no, numbers high, and he's like no, keep them low. So I think together with that we kind of come to some kind of medium ground where we
it's a good balance.
Kind of get things too out of control. As I said, I think that it's just a matter of just being careful. One nice thing that we also have is with the league format that we have is that we get to add power, and then at the end of the league we get to decide, like, was that too much? Can we take some of this away? Do we want to keep it? That kind of stuff. Like that's a very important tool.
One of the benefits of live service, actually.
It means we don't have to commit to things in the same way that a game that didn't have a league type process does.
Yeah.
Because the expectation from players, and I think this is almost sort of a community thing, the expectation from the community is not necessarily that all the content that we add is going to stay added. And I think that's a really important factor to have as an understanding of in a game community, because it just gives us so much more ability to like make decisions after testing them. It's funny, like, I say that as if, oh yeah, you just test all of your stuff on the players, but I mean, to some extent that's true, and because
hey, what's up, Alessio?
You never really know. Like, you can do all the testing you want, but you never really know until the community actually get a chance to play with it and you see what kind of stuff comes out of it. So yeah, I mean, on some level, we really are testing the stuff on the community, and it has to be that way. I just don't know of a way, like, no matter how many QA testers we throw at it, I don't think we could find every single possible level of power that can come out of something like that. So,
I have to say though, guys, I'm very interested in seeing during early access, because it hasn't been talked about in a while. Like Jonathan did mention that, you know, depending on how many problems there are and whatever, there may be potential. He said he expects 2 to 3 resets during the early access. Like he said it a while back ago. So I'm very, very interested to see how that actually pans out, how people are going to take it. Because remember, as gamers, we get very attached to our characters and our builds. So the fact that everything is going to get wiped and reset, if you know, I suspect that's going to happen, but only time will tell. But I'm very interested to see how that happens and what the reaction is going to be, if any, you know, during early access. Very interested in seeing that.
yeah, like it's just nice that we have the ability to say, you know what, this thing here, we're going to put it back in, but we're going to nerf it, or this thing here, just it can't exist. Like it interacts with too many other things and is too broken. You know, it's really nice to be able to say that.
Kind of a random question that I have due to the use. You mentioned this in I think it was the Ziggy Q&A afterwards, but that the early access server is going to be maintained. Yeah. So meaning you're going to have leagues, you know, separate, but then the OG one will go back there, and that is going to be separate from like the Eterno or core server as well, right? There will be an early access one. So a question for you I have then is, the early access characters, one, I'm assuming you can still, you know, play them, etc. on the servers, and two, can you still create characters on the early access server afterwards, or are they kind of grandfathered in and make sure you have all the characters you want for the server?
I think we probably won't allow you to create new characters there, just because
that's kind of crazy.
I think that even just if you're a new player and you're like, oh, you've got place. I mean, I suppose what we could do is allow you to create characters there if you've already got one there. That would be an option. But I kind of don't really think we need to do that. Like, as I said, the main reason we're doing that is just because if you're someone who's like not even really paying attention to what's going on, and you're just like, you've got some level 20 character and you're like, oh, I just want to keep playing the game, right? Like, we don't want to disrupt that person's life too much. So I think that's why we don't want to just get rid of all that stuff completely. Yeah, I mean, the thing is though that, like, you know, if you're playing a high level character, almost certainly your build is going to be bricked in some regard, right? Like there'll be some element of it that got modified or something like that, you know. But then of course you'll also have like legacy items, which will be kind of presumably funky, assuming that we have to modify balance, which no doubt we will have to do. Yeah, like you'll have all that stuff. So I mean, look, there's just no reason to delete the data, right? Like we're not going to make an effort to make sure that everything is, you know, like still works, like in terms of your builds and everything, but we're also not going to do anything that we don't have to do in terms of deleting it either, right? Like we might as well just let it be there. You know, and it's also just like nice to have like, oh, here's this character I got, you know, back in the day. Like it's nice to just have that around. So, you know, it's just a little memory of that. So yeah, there's just no reason for us to delete it.
So speaking of builds getting bricked, if I reference one of the interviews we actually did on here, is you had mentioned Righteous Fire as an example when we were talking about cosmetics and MTX, and you were saying that it's fundamentally getting changed. And I was hoping to ask for Pox here. Shout out to Pox. Can we get any information related to Righteous Fire or where that is going? I was kind of wanting to follow up with that you had mentioned in previous.
So it's not an early access right now because it's not a class that is not. It's one of the skills for a class that's not going to be an EA. So you get that a little bit later. But it is going to be in. We have a prototype of it. And
there you go, Chris.
A way that we're happy for it to
confirmed.
Work.
Righteous Fire.
But, yeah, unfortunately, just not an EA, or at least not an EA at the start. Right when we add the character, it'll come in.
It's going to be in significantly changed, or
it is very it is very different.
Okay.
But it's still fundamentally, you know, it's still fundamentally a thing where you're lighting yourself on fire and there's fire damage around you and that kind of stuff, right? It's just that, you know, like the exact mechanics from a stat point of view.
And it's
like,
shooting off projectile. God knows what they're going to do to it.
Look at the stats; it's like works quite differently.
There we go. Thank you. I had to ask for Pox.
Fair enough.
Speaking of bricking, a very common question. I believe this was shown in the reveal, but bricking the Atlas.
Here you go. He's going to explain it now.
Can't do it again. So in the start, what happens when you if you break all the starter maps?
Or around it, yeah.
Get
So
good.
we have the ability to
No, I'm kidding,
effectively
guys. I'm
restart
kidding.
your atlas. If you completely cut yourself off, you can do that. I don't remember what way it is to do that, but it certainly came up when we were first talking about it. There just has to be some way to allow you to effectively restart your atlas from scratch if you need to. I would hope that most people don't do that. I should hope that you manage to survive it. Like you know, so there's 4 connections to the starting point. So you'd have to die 4 times in a row in order for that to happen to you, and then if that happens, it'll automatically re-roll the atlas, so you can kind of just try again immediately. Okay. But yeah, hopefully not.
Ooh, I missed that part.
And run into that issue. Yeah, I mean, look, we wanted there to be consequences for failure, right? We wanted to, so it's like, oh crap, you know, now I have to find another way around. Like the web of connections is dense enough that usually there'll be some other way around to get to something that you want. But bear in mind, there won't be too many, right? Like if you then die in another one of the entrances to get to some piece of content, that could definitely cut you off. So you know, there are some consequences for death, like you know. And with that in mind, it obviously means that things like the experience penalty at low levels, certainly we don't need to be as worried about, because you know there's consequences just from the death itself in the atlas. But yeah, you know, I think it's just the other reason why it's also important to do that, by the way, is because of the fact that you can fail a map. It means that the things that we can have on the atlas can be more valuable, right? Because if we have things that you can just try again, then you've always got these problems where, like, okay, if you go into the map, like let's say you wanted to have a map and it's just full of chests that you know drop stuff for whatever reason. Let's just say we want to do that, right? It's like if the failure, it really has to be that you can only enter that map. They can only create that map one time. Because otherwise, you know, like at what point do you say, well, the map is completed? Like there always has to be things, like there always has to be some kind of condition like that. So by effectively just having the rule of like a map can only be created by you one time, it means that, you know, yeah, the valuable stuff we can put on there, like monsters and things like that. Like if you can have mods on the atlas that are like, you know, increases the number of rares by a ton, and that's fine because you know that you don't have a situation where someone just kills half of them and then dies on purpose and then goes back in and kills them again. You know, that kind of stuff. Like effectively, like that's the kind of exploit that we're trying to avoid here, and so it just allows us to have much more valuable stuff on there. We do, by the way, have a bit of this problem in campaign that we have to worry about, like because you know you can respawn at checkpoint at any time, and so we have to be really careful about this stuff because you know I mentioned before that at the end of dead ends you'll get rare chests. Well, if you can set it, like we had an exploit before we fixed it, where like you know if you get a checkpoint that's close to a rare chest because it's at a dead end, you can die on purpose, respawn at the checkpoint, just open the chest again and again. And so
about that.
yeah. So effectively, what we have to do is make it so that when you revive from a checkpoint, all of the things like
yeah,
chests
that's a
and rare
good
monsters,
question, Mage and
they have
Goba.
to stay dead. Even if you opened them or killed them after you did the checkpoint, for the next version until you recreate the map and do it from scratch again, because that stuff would be exploitative if you were able to, you know, to not save that after you died. So there's like a few little things we have to worry about with the checkpoints for exploits for that, but thankfully in maps you don't, because there's no, you know, you don't have to worry about that element. Since if you die, you're done.
I have a follow-up to that because I felt like when I played tested the campaign. Now the game is very different from when I played tested it last time in LA. And there was one mechanic, and I kept saying gearing and getting skill gems, it felt so good. I felt like I always were given the tools I needed when I was progressing. Yeah. And I had no idea about the mechanic till you told me at the event about this loot table rare that randomly was generated in the area, and if you didn't kill it, that would be available in the next zone to give you like an appropriate flask. So I'm guessing that feature is also for there, so you can't farm that, I'm guessing. But a lot of people don't know about it, so maybe you can elaborate on it.
Yeah, so effectively what we've done in the very, very early game in order to make it so that, to guarantee a certain number of skills and things like that, is that there's a couple of encounters where if you fail to find the encounter in the first
is interesting,
area,
actually.
for example, then when you go to the second area, we will drop the item that you would have gotten if you'd found that first encounter, just to make sure that if you didn't run into this, but you did run into a later one, then we like forward that on to the next area, and then we do that like a couple of times with a few different encounters. It's kind of all stuff like in the first like sort of 10 levels, this kind of stuff, just to really make sure that like people actually get some of those important drops. Like when you're level sort of 15, 20, missing out on one skill gem is like not really a big deal. But when you're really low level and it's like you've got very few skills, if you miss out on that crucial upgrade of getting like the next tier of gem, that can matter so much that we just can't really allow it to happen. So we need to have as many chances as possible for people to find those things. But at the same time, we didn't want to just spam you with that type of gem, because then it's like, oh, I've got tons of these. Well, you know, like it would feel wouldn't feel very valuable if you did find them all. So we want to all of those encounters, they do have loot that you get. Like there's still a reason to do all of them because they have their own unique stuff as well. But effectively, if you do miss some of them, you're still getting some of those really crucial things like skill gem upgrades and things like that in those first few areas. I actually think, though, that some of that problem might be slightly ameliorated by the fact that we've got the map now where you can see all the encounters. So I think that in some cases people might be looking at there. But we still have that system just because, you know, it's nice to be able to, you know, to just make sure that people don't fail in the very early game.
Yep.
So speaking of the map, I got just a couple of questions related to the map. One is when we're talking about you know, breaking the map and not being able to go to certain areas if you fail too many. Does this account for like bosses too? For instance, like pinnacle bosses, and are they linked together where you fail the maps around it, you cannot go do the boss now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because if you fail, oh sorry, the cities with the Uber bosses, those are extra special because if you fail one of those, if you fail to kill the lieutenant, then the boss will disappear from the Uber boss will disappear from the center of the city as well. So those ones are like you really have to be able to do those fights, and it will be quite challenging. That one, of course, is extra challenging because you need to find another city, right? So that one's going to be something that I think will be quite challenging. So yeah, like that's for like the ultra pinnacle content, like that 7th system, which has the I don't want to say the name because we didn't spoil
Pinnacle
it.
boss.
But that pinnacle boss encounter, that one will be quite hard to get to.
Okay, so speaking
So
of
the
pinnacle boss encounters, got a couple more questions related to this. Are the bosses? I hear there's what you said, tier 1 through 4, correct?
So you're talking about in terms of loot drops and things like that. I think I've talked about this before.
In terms of difficulty ramping, I don't think that we got clarity on whether or not you can modify these maps. Meaning, can you further modify the?
Okay, so you're talking about the trees at the end where you add the difficulty. Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So yes, there's 4 tiers. Yes, that's correct.
And so beyond that, can you modify the bosses themselves? Are the bosses static and you modify on your tree only, or are the bosses almost like maps? You know how you can modify like invites, for instance, from POE1. So can you further modify these?
Let me think about that. So generally speaking, not. So I'm pretty sure the Breachstone can't get mods. Can simulacrums get mods? I don't know. I'm not actually sure.
No problem.
The ultimatum ones can, because those ones have that extra mechanic for modifying him. I'm actually not entirely. So like, look, what I'll say is in general, like it's not like it isn't the same for every league. Like for each league, we can decide what we want to do there. But generally speaking, for those 4 in-game things, the main thing you're going to be doing is modifying the difficulty using the tree like that. And that difficulty scaling does introduce things like, you know, it can even modify things like how skills work and like, you know, the number of minions that a boss might summon and things like that. Like there's all sorts of stuff like that, but it isn't random what you're doing there on the tree. So for the pinnacles, it really is just kind of mostly just that difficulty change.
Okay, got it. I think the reason people were asking is they were wondering if like there's a hardest baseline challenge where it's like this is sort of a baseline you can use on can you clear the hardest content. Yeah. So people were wanting some clarity on that.
For the pinnacle boss, it definitely is the case.
Okay, thank you very much. So another question I was kind of wondering when I was looking at the map, I noticed you use the example of like the paradise, for instance, you get the bonus experience, and that is obviously on the beach because it's tropical. Yeah. So I'm assuming the uniques are zoned out to the biomes that you have specifically. Correct. And if that is the case, since the biomes are determining maps, do these unique maps also have drops associated with them? Essentially where I'm going with this is, are certain biomes going to help you target farm certain types of items?
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to do even more than just what you were saying with the unique maps. Like we have just certain like this map has got this theme and therefore it can drop this more of this item and stuff like that. Like we absolutely, and the thing is, this is one of the great things about the new way that the Atlas works, is that with the previous Atlas, we couldn't really allow for target farming in that same way. Or when we did, it was always a problem, like with div cards and so on, where, you know, I mean, obviously we
prefer
modified div
this
cards, you can
method.
move them around now, but generally speaking, it was the case with the old Atlas that if we made it so a map had something special, then everyone would just play that map continuously forever. So with the new system, we effectively can say that, you know, it's okay to have wild variance in between, you know, the value of certain things, because, you know, you're limited by having to find more of it. And if you happen to know that the thing that you want spawns in desert biomes, and then you're using towers to find those desert biomes, and then you're looking around, okay, like finally, you know, I'm just going to go through all the deserts, you can absolutely do that. In the case of Untainted Paradise, that one requires being on the border of the water and a forest. So only forests next to ocean, I believe, will cause that map to spawn. And then like we can do other things like that as well. Like we can have special spawn conditions about like, you know, oh, when you get this and this, that's when this can spawn. And so that's like a way that we can kind of like fiddle around with the rarity. But also, if players learn these things, then they can know what to look for when they're exploring the map, as far as like finding that stuff as well. So that can be a bit fun.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that's going to influence things like racing, etc. But another question I had then is, does that mean that the people's individual map, because you said it's infinite, it's, you know, generated, etc. So does that mean each person has a completely random different starting point? Like for instance, maybe I'm more prone to find Tainted Paradise, you know, sooner than a different person.
I mean, it is certainly true that you can roll well on certain things. Like, you know, there's nothing limiting the fact that you could find 5
yes,
Tainted Paradises there where you started and another person couldn't, right? But I think the law of averages will just mean that in general it kind of ends up averaging out to the same kind of thing.
Sure.
You know, I like. It is an interesting point that you make about racing, because it does mean that if you're looking about the race to 100, it is possible for one person to get luckier than the other as far as what maps spawn for them. But then by the same token, it's possible for someone to get lucky on what items drop for them or some other one of a million things. So the longer you play effectively, the more the law of averages happens and the more kind of it just comes down to play skill rather than randomness. Yeah, ultimately, you know, everyone gets a different experience there. And when you reset your, when you do the thing where you run out of where you no longer have any nodes to explore, by the way, that does change the seed of your atlas, so you'll get a new random layout as well. Yeah, so that's just worth mentioning, just because
that's good. That's good to know.
So you can actually re-roll the complete layout if you want.
By dying 4 times.
Well, yeah, but I think there might be a way to do it without dying. I'm not 100% sure on that. I can't remember whether actually what the way to trigger this was, but yeah, that is a thing.
Okay. So Atlas rolling meta coming up soon.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Because we made sure we did think of the one thing of like, you're not going to get an Untainted Paradise within the initial fog of war that you can see when you first enter the Atlas. So, you know, like we're not going to allow that special stuff to spawn right in that first circle.
So I do have one follow-up here before I send it over, guys, really, because I'm just kind of thinking based upon this concept. So if there's certain biomes that are going to spawn certain types of unique maps, and maybe certain biomes are more prone to certain type of item drops, etc., but the maps themselves, I can't like take that Untainted Paradise, put it as a consumable, and then trade it on the market. Does this mean you're expecting much more social play, where it's like, hey, I found this unique map, who is expecting this unique map, and having people actually looking for other players that their particular, you know, Atlas has the maps that people are particularly looking for? Is this something you guys are expecting and planning around?
I think it could definitely happen for sure. As for whether that's good or not, I guess we'll find out. Like, it's really sort of hard to know what the sort of social dynamics of something like that will be. But yeah, absolutely, it's something that I have no doubt will start to occur. And the concern with this stuff is always, you know, do you start to get, and sorry, the name of the server of the thing is of the Discord server that's incredibly infamous is slipping my mind right now. But you know, there's an infamous Discord server where people do cuts. I mean, that probably is fine, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Like, it wouldn't really be hard to do to just try it. The thing with something like a mode like that is it's really easy to just like try some random stuff, but to really make it actually good would require quite a lot more work. And at one point we were actually pretty keen to make like an actually good version of
a question about Battle Royale.
You know, when we announced that originally, like when I said 1 day of development, it really was just like, you know, like there was a limit of like 1 day per developer of how much time they were
putting a Battle Royale in POE2.
And it turned out like it's kind of like one of those things that's like fun for for a few days, but it didn't really have like long-lasting good gameplay because like no one.
Hey, Galaxy Master.
We didn't really test it, right? We just kind of just like did some random shit and put it up there, and it was kind of cool. So that was a fun little experience. But we did discuss like should we make an actual proper version of this? Like would this be something that actually works well? And we were kind of almost did, but I don't know, just like other stuff happened. We didn't end up doing it. But you know what? Maybe we should have another just like random fun battle royale and POE2 event. Just even if we don't like.
Can
you
you
just another one of
imagine?
those just like ultra kind of garage style, just like everyone just like make some random stuff and just put it in there and we'll just see what happens. It could be.
Oh my
fun.
God, the community would go ape shit.
I'll send the ball over to the.
I used to do. I used to do way more, like way back in the early days of POE1. I used to do just like way more rando stuff like that. And I really enjoyed doing it, but for various reasons, like it's kind of like I don't know, like I just never really.
You're playing Monk,
I find
Galaxy
this
Master.
a random example of this.
The Monk looks
is
good.
I was like, okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have a level 1 DPS competition. So we had a competition for like what is the character that can get the highest DPS at level 1, and then what we decided, I think we gave away, like, we're like, okay, if whoever wins this, we're just going to give, like, a t-shirt or something. There was just some random, like, prize that we were just going to give away. I was like, man, this is really smart because, like, if you use other characters to, like, rush your level 1 character, but then make sure they never get any leech any experience, then you can, like, get all the quests and, like, get all of the, like, passive points that you can get when you're level 1, and there's, like, quite a lot you can do. And it's like, then it's like, okay, what's the minimum amount of experience you can possibly get by killing the mandatory bosses, in order to get the quest flags? Like, it was, like, all these, like, little things. I was like, man, people are going to have so much fun with this stuff. And then we got all these, like, kind of negative reactions about it, of, like, people being like, oh, you know, you have to cheat, you have to multi-box to do this competition. Like, there was, like, are you saying you're endorsing doing this? And there's, like, all this random stuff that the community kind of reacted negatively about with this. Because I guess they were kind of feeling like, oh, you know, like some guy who's like willing to spend all this time and like find the best level 1 item is going to be the one who wins it. And it's like, well, yeah, that was kind of the point,
course.
right? Like, I was hoping that a bunch of people, like some random like total basement dwelling people would be like, you know, I'm going to spend like frickin' a week on this and like find like what the best possible way with like all these steps is going to be, and then that person will get a prize, right? Like it's just a completely out there thing. You know, that is what happened. But for some reason, people got angry about it, and I was kind of like, you know. I guess I just don't understand. Like to me, that's cool. It's like it's not like this is some big feature that we worked on, right? It was just a random idea I had. So like I really love doing that kind of stuff, and I feel like you know, like it would be cool to do more of that, but it kind of requires, I guess, a certain mindset in the community. So I don't know. Like there's always this worry whenever you do something like that of like, why are you wasting time on this when you could be doing some other thing, right?
Yeah.
So
stick to the core game.
That could be a concern.
That's what a lot of the feedback would be.
I missed all these. I'm just sitting here thinking back because I think the reason this came up in conversations on previous podcasts we did with Pox. Pox was going through all of. We saw the Ranger, but two questions here, which is: are there more than just the Roa mount, and are mounts more than just Ranger? Can I be expected to be?
This
a
is about the Roa, guys.
Two-handed maces swinging off the back of a Roa.
Unfortunately not. So the Rangers are sorry, the Roa, I should say, is a Ranger. Well, no, I mean it's not Ranger only, but the bonus that it gives is the ability to fire while without slowing down. So only bow. Well, yeah, only like arrow skills are ones you can actually fire off the back of a Roa. So anyone else could ride it, but it's not going to give you any advantage to do so because you know, it's just like the main thing you're getting is the ability not to slow down with arrows. So yeah, it's not like some larger system really. It's just like a thing we made for that, and you know, we just thought it was cool. And because the thing is, we don't want mounts to be like faster. So the reason why it's faster for the Ranger is because she gets to not slow. She just effectively gets to not pay the penalty of slowing down while shooting. But we don't want mounts to just be faster than running in any case, because if we do that, then it's like the whole different game.
Everybody's going to be on a mount.
That we don't want to have to deal with.
Kind of makes sense. Little disappointing, but makes sense.
Things we can do with a mount like that. Now, I think it'll be cool later to do more mounts for more things. Like, you know, I'm sure there's ideas that you could have that would be cool. But for at least for the time being, that's the mount that we've got, and you know, we won't be.
I am hearing, for the sake of roleplay cosmetic Andy, I do get to at least sit on the mount and walk around in town or something like that. Okay.
Sure. And we could probably make some cosmetic mounts as well that were the same.
You already have a POE2 shirt, so I got one for my son's size with my pack. So nice,
you know,
McRich.
I mean, on that topic, I'll pitch you this idea. Obviously, I want some royalties. So I like my skeletons to, when I mount up, to fall apart and the bones of the skeletons to form a skeletal horse. And when I dismount, I want to deform the skeletons again. Okay?
Noted.
Noted. Thank you.
You will get exactly 1 cell. It will be Gossip by the amount.
That would be so cool. Moving on to assembling things question. It's crafting related. So I don't want to spend too much time on this because the crafting is very different, but it's what we're going to see a lot when we play. But I will ask a couple questions about it. So let's start with essences. Now, we are confirmed to be able to use essences multiple times where they guarantee a modifier. What we've seen is making a normal item into a magical item, guaranteeing 1 modifier. We've seen essences making a magic item, a regaling essentially, to turn into rare with a guaranteed 2nd modifier if we want to. So I guess the first question is regarding essences. Is this a guaranteed specific modifier, or is it a 1x speed modifier or 1x attack modifier?
Yeah, so it is listed as it's one of a group, but in many cases, that for a given item type, there's only 1 mod of that type that could spawn anyway. So effectively, like in those cases, it's completely guaranteed. But there's a few cases where it could be one of a couple of mods. But generally speaking, for a given item type, it will just be 1 mod. And the main reason why we did it that way, even though mostly it's just a single mod anyway, is because we didn't want to have the thing where you've got the giant list where for each item type it's like, here's what mod you're going to get, and like this is kind of annoying. So we just wanted to say like it'll give you a mod of a certain group, and then that way you can sort of know what you're going to get from that. Yeah, effectively, generally speaking, though, you're going to know what you're going to get from that mod, except for like a couple of specific cases, I think.
Okay. On the follow-up there, we talked about that earlier with the wiki in-game to search for monsters. Talked about that a little bit earlier. I guess another question in similar fashion for crafting, is there any idea or desire or even plans to give us the tool to look at the tooltip in-game of seeing these are the modifiers that can be applied to this item to avoid, again, having to go to third-party sites and tools?
So we actually were going to have, so I'll give you some... Okay, so at the event that
give us some tea, Jonathan. Give us some tea.
There was probably, you might have noticed the crafting bench that we still had in that version.
He goes
that actually got cut. And so what that was going to be was not only was it a crafting bench, but also
bench, guys.
it effectively served as your encyclopedia of mods. Because you could see when you put an item in there exactly what mods could actually go on it, because the user interface not only sort of had the crafting thing, but it also had kind of like the like here's the mods that can spawn, and like sure some of them are grayed out because you can't you can't craft them on this item, but you could at least see what they were. So we actually kind of were working towards something like that, but the problem was that the crafting bench had all sorts of issues, which I mean I could go into if you want, but like but suffice to say the feature got cut, and so now we currently don't have something like that. That's a bit of a shame, because I do think that being able to see that stuff in game is good, and like we were actually doing something useful with that. It's possible that we might bring something like that back a little bit later. But like we did a bunch of UI work to kind of get this to be the case. And I do think that it's good to have that stuff in game. It's just that we don't currently have that for mods. That's a bit of a shame.
I mean, to dive into.
Go ahead. Sorry.
You want to go ahead? I was going to say, not to dive into the reasons for the cut of the crafting bench as much as to, do you still expect it to come, or is it a decision like we shouldn't have this in the game as much as like it's not ready technically, there's bugs or something, it's like a to be determined, or is it like firm decision?
It was a design problem, not a technical problem. So I might as well just go into it, right? Might as well just go through the whole thing. So effectively, we had this whole... So during betas, actually, we had a lot of feedback all the time about people saying, I don't have a way... You're not giving me the tools to fix the problems that I have with my build, right? And the type of player that we were getting that from a lot was POE1 players, right? Because they're used to the crafting bench. And the crafting bench absolutely is a way to be able to fix problems with your build. So the first way that we I'm trying to think back. So the problems that we had with the crafting bench is it kind of trivialized certain mods, and the issue the designers often have is like, okay, effectively what it does is, because the mods you can get from the crafting bench are kind of like, they're not top tier, but they are kind of good enough, I guess. So it meant that effectively a rare item was only 5 mods plus a crafted mod, and that sort of reduces the amount of power you can get at the top end on some level, or like the level or the degree to which randomness can cause an item to be good relative to the average item. Which some people would say is a good thing, right? And some people would say is a bad thing. But the point is, there was always this contention around this, right, with the designers and so on. So that was like sort of one of the issues. So then, The other issue was just the way the costing was. I think it was just like, I can't remember exactly what we were unhappy about with that, but effectively we were unhappy about that. So we came up with another design. And the first design of it was, what we're going to do is we're going to say that whenever you get an item, you can salvage a mod off an item that will destroy the item, and then you'll get some kind of juice of that mod, or like maybe some kind of essence or something like that. Like, effectively, you'd get some kind of amount of like something for that mod, and then you would build up to the point where you can then put that mod on another piece of gear. So we tried this out, and the problem that we were having is that if we tried like 5 different ways that this could work in terms of like how it could work, and generally speaking, there was always this fight every single time of like, if we make this like easy enough so that players can easily do it, then the designers start to get unhappy about the fact that items are becoming too trivial, like we're not happy about this, like all these sort of issues like that. And if we make it so that the players, so that the designers are happy, then the players are like, this is just busy work and it takes me forever and I have to salvage all these items, you're making me make decisions, and there was like all sorts of things that the like players were just not very happy about. Like, it just didn't feel fun to actually use. Like I actually was never really happy with it in terms of just the user experience of using it. So we had built this whole thing, and like we balanced it a whole bunch of different ways, and then I think we were a bit too close to the issue, because the other thing that was happening through all of this was like, like Mark often was like, oh, what if we just didn't have the crafting bench? Like, can we just not have it? Like, the item system does work. Like, there's all these complaints, but but maybe we just don't need it. And I know that Rishi as well was kind of like, yeah, I prefer. He was like, I prefer not to have it, but then like if it works this way, then I am okay with having it. And it's like, no one was happy. You know what I mean? Like this is not a good thing when you've got a system like that. So eventually, I think as I said, I was a little bit too close to the issue, because I was like, we can't launch into early access without a crafting bench, because the crafting bench is just a thing that POE players expect. And like, if we don't have a way for players to feel like they've got a way to solve problems like resist or something like that, then people are going to crucify us, right? Like, it's a really big issue. And eventually, and I don't remember who I think it was Rishi even who might have suggested this. He basically just said, hey, because that's right. Because at one point I was like, what if the crafting just added an extra mod, so it didn't affect the existing mods? You could just add an extra mod, even if you've already got the mod on the item. If it just adds an extra mod, then it would solve the problems, because it doesn't like interfere with the randomness of the other mods, but it also lets you solve your problems. So like, there shouldn't be any issue, like sort of, and that we're kind of like, yeah, that'll solve the problem. But we still had the problem where people weren't really enjoying actually destroying and salvaging mods of items. Like, adding the extra, like, here's another thing to think about in the item system was just something that people just wasn't fun. So then Rishi said, okay, well, you're talking about adding an extra mod to all items. Well, we already have the socket system that we created for Ultimatum, for the Val Orbs. Because at the time, what that did is it could add one socket, but you didn't have existing sockets on items. So it was like, what if we just allow sockets to spawn on items? We have a currency that lets you add sockets, and we just also have just common runes that have just like the standard mods. And
Nice.
This took basically no effort to implement, because we already had the stuff for sockets. We already had like basically everything we needed, and it pretty much exactly was filling the function that the crafting bench was supposed to fill. But yet it didn't have. But yet it feels fun, because you don't have to have this busy work of having to salvage mods, like salvage mods all the time. So effectively, it was just a way better solution. And as soon as we tried that, it's like, designers are happy, players are happy, everyone's happy. So it was just immediately just way better. So yeah, but it does mean that we just don't get that nice encyclopedia of mods that we had before. So I mean, that still exists, right? Like, we could put that in a moment's notice. We have the system. But what I'm thinking is maybe we can find a way to get something of that nature in later on without it requiring as much busy work. So one thing we discussed was like, well, what if we had this as an endgame thing? Because like at endgame, you wouldn't have as much of that tension problem of like, because in order to make the balance work for the amount of juice you need for a mod to work both at early game and at late game, the kind of balance you need to do is like kind of annoying with like massive exponential scaling factors and like stuff like that. That was one thing's like, maybe it would work if it was an endgame only system. So I guess that's a bit of a ramble, but effectively all that is to say, we've got this sitting in the wings. We could theoretically bring it back. The problem is a design issue, not a technical issue. It's just like we're never happy with how it played. And so yeah, maybe one day we can make a way for it to work.
I appreciate you going into the detail on it, because it's actually it's really cool to hear the thought process behind it.
And I'm glad DM mentions that. It's very rare, you have a studio give you like behind the curtains look. Like, that's some pretty detailed stuff, like I said, behind the curtain kind of details, and it just he immediately decided right on this interview, you know what, let's get into it. Let me just explain to it what happened. And he literally brought us into Grinding Gear Games studio and them talking about it internally, what the hell to do with the crafting table. It's just remarkable. And these are decisions that have such a great impact, right? And especially you take a misstep in that with the crafting and the crafting table, which Jonathan said it's so important to the Path of Exile 1 players. But I think they did a great job. The fact, like he explained with the sockets, adding the ruins, like I just think it's a good solution. But only time will tell. We're going to test it and we'll see how people feel about it and how the player base feels about it actually in game. It sounds great, in my opinion.
Instead of just hearing it's not going to be in the game,
They're
like
doing
actually
it right,
hearing
yeah.
the process of how you came to it. I appreciate the answer. Go on, Gazi.
Yeah, McRich. It's
I do.
These guys are really good leaders. Really good leaders. You know, in my opinion, like these guys know how to run a company, how to communicate to us. Like they're really good at their job.
Think about like the whole idea with the crafting bench. So we're not going to have a crafting bench. It's being replaced by sockets featured. I think it's pretty fair the way that approach is. It seems to solve the situation.
Yep.
But we also have the idea of microtransactions of bench micros that needs to be supported in POE2. What's stopping?
So I think.
Sorry?
So I think that for now at least, I believe that the salvage bench, obviously it's like way less of a big deal, but the salvage bench, you can still have that in your hider, you can still retheme that how you like. And then if we do add the crafting bench back, then you'll just be able to reskin that as well. There are also a couple of other things that are basically benches, so effectively you'll be able to reskin those using crafting benches that you've already bought. So long as they're in the game, then you have that. So effectively that's what you get for now. I do understand that it's like a little bit weird because the bench is not like the salvage bench is not as big of a deal as what the crafting bench was in POE1. So like you could argue that the reskin has less value in that sense, but it's still a thing you can put in your hideout and still use in that way. So we still have the compatibility there.
But think of it this way: like it might be a far-fetched idea, but like think of the crafting bench. Start with that.
Yeah. So effectively, all of the on that list, it does have the full list of all the weapon types. I guess there's not really a huge amount to say about it. Like Mark was the one who was like, yeah, we should probably do this, and like he'd probably be a better one to answer that question. But he was kind of like, you know what, I think we'll try it out, right? If it doesn't work, we'll just change it. Just true of anything we do. So
that's it.
I don't think there's some big deep philosophy around this. It's just kind of like, hey,
Sure. For context, I think the reason people are asking is like, well, I won plus 20 on my class.
Sure.
It's type of questions here.
Well, I do want to. I'll interrupt you real quick. There, like, there's that as well, sure. But there's also this idea that your first 2 ascendancy points, like where your ascendancy points, you get 2 of them. You kind of want to get the majority of the classes giving you something that gives you power.
Good night,
Whereas
Dennis.
This
Thanks.
choice is only giving you a quality of life feature, and Blood Mage, first 2 ascendancies, is a negative input for the class. So I was curious about the decision making there.
Right. So okay, well I'll go into the Blood Mage one at least. So one thing I should mention about that is that it does allow you to overcap your life by double, which is something that I didn't mention in the video. But it's kind of important, right? So effectively, if you're picking up those orbs, then you can get to double the amount of life that you normally have. So yeah, Mark actually pointed out. Mark actually mentioned that I forgot to mention that upside in the in the thing. So yeah, that's kind of an important element as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, but I kind of look. I know what you mean about the one with the inventory space keystone. Sorry, ascendancy node. So yeah, I understood, right? Like I totally get where you're coming from with that.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next ascendancy node. So during the footage, speaking of the footage of the presentation, I'm sitting there and I'm super hyped about Warrior. I'm going to play Warrior. I play Warrior in all 3 tests. I want maces, seeing the giant splits, all looking good, right? So then they show the Warrior class of the Ancestral Spirit. And the footage shows a monkey who gets summoned. He pounds his chest and he runs
away?
into a tree. He
Yes,
just runs away.
I know. And this came up during, like, when we saw that so late as well. So, okay, one thing I think you guys should understand is the fact that, like, okay, you probably assume that this video was ready like a week ago. Well, let me tell you, we were rendering it out the night before. And still freaking working on it, right? So there are a lot of things about that video that I certainly would have wanted to improve. And the monkey running off into the tree was definitely on the list. Okay, like that was in there. That was certainly not lost on us. Unfortunately, we just didn't get time to fix
Again,
that.
full
But yes, I know you
transparency.
guys look good.
Crazy.
Yeah, but well, not so much trying to roast you about the
Yeah, yeah.
monkey. It's like everyone wants to know what the monkey do. Like there's a monkey.
Yeah.
What is it? What does the monkey do? Is there any chance I can find that out?
He doesn't
I
know.
don't actually have the finer details on this one. It's you know, I actually don't know. I would have to ask Mark about that one. He's the
He
one
doesn't
working on
know.
that.
He doesn't know.
But
So there's
yeah,
a monkey.
I know. But the thing, but it was not lost on me though. That one thing, like it was, yeah. Honestly, like, you know, it's people, yeah. It came in hot, that presentation. Let me just say that.
All right. So it does more than runs away then.
Yes.
So there was a 10% chance to get a creator unique and a 90% chance to get a div card. So you lucked out pretty hard.
Oh my god!
I'll talk to him and we'll see about that. Yeah, that was happening there for sure.
All right.
But yeah, as I said, I think it needs to be addressed.
The next question is, I know you love this. A lot of people don't, but I know you love it, and it is the Animate Guardian. Will we see it? Will it work differently?
Not an EA, but we'll see. We'll see about that. Actually, no. Okay, there is something. No, you know what? It's not an EA, so I won't talk about it. But there are some other things that kind of take some of the design space of that you'll see later on. Okay. But there are some stuff. I just think that it didn't quite.
There's
make
so
it.
much shit coming into
sure
this game. It's crazy.
Okay. So we obviously have the spirit being the reservations resource for both minions and auras. So could you elaborate on the power balance approach that you have, the mindset for minion players when it comes to reserving your spirit?
Okay, guys, I'm going to stop there. Obviously, you guys can go watch this video. I did a recap on this interview. It's on my YouTube channel. You can watch that too, or you can just watch the video, the interview from Gazi and DM. Really good. They did a great job, by the way. We watched, I would say, 85% of it. But we're gonna stop there. Gazi starts going into specific questions about minion builds, and I know there's a lot of people that like the minion builds, but there's a lot of people that don't play minion builds, so I don't want to get into it. So we're gonna probably call it for the night. I do kind of want to just a couple of housekeeping items. The Path of Exile 2 website has been updated, so if you're curious, I mentioned this when we first came on tonight. They've added some more information, obviously, because of what they shared with us in the reveal. So if you want to go around there and check out the information, it's the Path of Exile 2 website. It's they've updated it, so there's some more info in there. Go check it out. And what else did I want to mention? Oh, we are going to I don't know when, but I'm just waiting to hear back from GGG in reference to me kind of just doing something with my store points and getting some more keys. Anyway, I'm working it out with them, and we're going to start doing giveaways, key giveaways during the live streams. And I just haven't figured out when I'm going to start it. I'm just waiting to hear back on some details, but we're going to be doing that. So if you haven't bought a key and you want to get a key, come and hang out with us, and we'll randomly be doing. This is not going to cost you anything. You just got to be here, and it's a raffle kind of thing. And yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. And if you're on YouTube, if you could like the video, I would appreciate it. Obviously on Twitch, thanks for all the follows, guys. Thank you for the raid. I'm actually going to do a podcast. He's doing like this 40, 45 plus content creator, podcasting, literally every day. He did one tonight. Tomorrow he's interviewing Jonathan. Anyway, him and I are going to get together, I think on December 16th. I'll have more details on that. And we're just going to chew the fat, talk about our experiences so far with POE2, because, you know, that'll be 10 days in. Yeah, so we got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. So make sure you come back if you're new. We got a pretty cool, chill community over here, so we'd love to have you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. We are impatiently waiting for Path of Exile 2. I believe most of you are in the same shoes. But the good news is we're going to be slowly approaching single-digit sleeps. Right now we're at 10 sleeps, 11 days, and it's getting closer and closer. It's next week, guys. It is next week. Anyway, I'll shut my mouth. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you for all the follows. Love you guys. See you on the next one. Take care, everybody.